the time for identity politics is behind us. I mean, honestly, it's why we have Trump.
What's the most persuasive argument for a God? What are psychedelics doing to the brain? Is it a chemical thing, or are they tuning us into something spooky? What do you reckon the odds are that we end the 21st century with liberalism intact? I got a Waymo today.
I've never done that. Yeah,
you haven't done
it? No.
Would you do it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
but I just haven't. There are areas that they still don't reach in this town, so I haven't scrutinized them.
Are you curious?
Yeah. Well, I just assume it's fine. Was it fine? Was there any?
It's
issue?
fine. If anything, it's overly cautious.
Right.
It's like, you can go, bro. What are you waiting for? A written invitation? Like, there's nothing there.
Yeah.
But,
No, I've driven around them, so I see that they're not.
You're not
too
crashing
aggressive,
into things.
no, yeah.
And I say to people, like, I trust Google, and they raise their eyebrow at me and like, why would you trust Google? And I'm like, I don't trust them to give a shit about me or with my data.
Tesla, yeah. If you compare it to what Elon is doing, then you.
I also yes, exactly. I trust that they're not going to crash me into a wall.
Right.
That would be bad press. But I think that's interesting. How are you feeling about the pace of AI at the moment?
Well, it's. My views actually have not changed in a decade. I mean, I started worrying about it exactly 10 years ago. I guess the only update is that some of the things that I thought we didn't have to worry about, we clearly have to worry about. Like, so for instance, 10 years ago when a bunch of us were whinging about AI alignment, we assumed that as they built the most powerful AIs that seemed on the cusp of something like general intelligence, they would be doing that work so-called air-gapped from the internet. And then there'd be this further stage where there'd be some debate and maybe different risk preferences around the question of, is it safe to let this thing out?
Right.
Is it safe to hook it up to the internet? But clearly
in reality,
that was never a thing.
Let's just let it evolve in the wild.
Everything was going to be built in the wild. And I think no one that I knew actually foresaw that. I mean, so some people were sanguine enough about the non-problem of alignment that they didn't see a problem with that. But everyone who was worried just assumed that everyone else would be cautious enough, even if they were only paying lip service to these worries, to not hook it up to everything.
How did that happen? Just 18 months ago, I pitched a television show about AI, in which a whole episode was going to be devoted to the question of, people say that we can safely air gap these things, but you can imagine a scenario in which the AI essentially comes alive as if it's a human being who's in a cage in a room full of like Planet of the Apes monkeys. And if you have to convince the monkeys to let you out of the cage, you probably have ways of doing so.
No,
you
there
can
are all
bribe
these
them.
Scenarios, I mean, Eliezer Yudkowsky wasted at least 10,000 words on the scenario of, no matter how smart and scrupulous you think you are, a super intelligent AI can manipulate you to let it out. But we never crossed that stage.
There's no letting out.
Yeah,
it's out.
The thing is out, and hundreds of millions of people, if not billions of people, are already interacting with it.
The call's coming from inside the basement.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that was a genuine surprise. But other than that, no, I'm still worried about alignment. I guess I'm more worried about all the all too obvious human misuse of it. Even perfectly aligned AI can be used by maniacs to do terrible things. And I'm worried that we're going to render ourselves effectively ungovernable by spreading misinformation that's so compelling and so hard to debunk that we will,
Just pause that for a moment and talk about the alignment problem still, because I was talking to Coleman Hughes the other day, and for people who are just joining, I'm doing this crazy round-the-world tour where pretty much every day from a different city we talk to a fascinating person. It gets streamed live on Substack, and then you can listen back to it as an episode of Uncomfortable Conversations, which is my podcast. Sam Harris is kind enough to be with us today. And Coleman Hughes was on a few days ago, and I was talking to him about the alignment problem. He was like, if it was going to be a problem, it probably would have shown hints of being a problem already.
Well,
These things are just...
It has shown those hints of being a problem already.
What are those?
We've had AI lie, lie in scare quotes, effectively lie, and cheat, and pretend not to know things it clearly knows. I mean, there's an emergent adversarial relationship that we've seen in certain cases. I think there was a famous case with Anthropic, but and it's early on there was one AI, I forget which model this was, but it had to solve a CAPTCHA problem and couldn't do that on its own. So it actually enlisted a person through, I think, Amazon's Mechanical Turk service, and claimed that it was visually impaired and needed somebody to help it. And so it knew it couldn't say I'm a robot and I need you to help me.
Yeah.
So it's just, I mean, the thing that people it seems to me, are not taking seriously is just what we mean by general intelligence. If in fact you think we're going to build something that is truly intelligent and truly general, and therefore truly autonomous. I mean, there's autonomy built into a conception of intelligence, certainly a general intelligence, just as it is for any person. So and embedded in that concept, there's the possibility of manipulation and deception.
But wait there. Is it not the case that autonomy might be built into our conception of intelligence because we're mammals and so we're autonomous, and that you couldn't conceive? Is it inconceivable that you could have an intelligence without autonomy?
I think it's inconceivable to have what we're calling a general intelligence without autonomy, because so we're not, and in this case we're not talking just about general intelligence. We're talking about general superintelligence. I mean, it's already superintelligent in every specific way that it's functioning. I mean, it makes obvious errors that even dumb people wouldn't make, but when it's functioning the way your phone functions as a chess player or a calculator, it's already super intelligent.
Well, a calculator is super intelligent at maths.
Yeah, but so is even your phone for chess, and so is an LLM for most of the tasks you give it that are purely linguistic, right? I mean, when I ask ChatGPT to give me 10 reasons why the stock market crash of 1929 happened, it does it better than a person can do it, right?
Which is how you can tell that it has failed the Turing test.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the irony. It's like the Turing test wasn't a thing because they pass it so breathtakingly that they fail it. I mean, it's just, it's not a person.
Right.
But
I'm still not convinced that it may be possible, but I'm not convinced that it's necessary that intelligence has to have agency come along for the ride, if by agency we mean the capacity to have goals that are divergent from your human masters. Right?
But just think of what intelligence. I think that the thing you're arguing for, one assumption is possibly false. Is that we're clearly not built. This is not being evolved as it's being evolved, but it's not being evolved as a primate, right? So doesn't have the full evolutionary toolkit that we have.
It doesn't have fight and flight at the base of its at the top of its spine.
Right, but if you imagine building something that's truly general and super intelligent, then the truth is it will by definition have a cognitive horizon that exceeds our own. I mean, it will be capable of forming conceptions of possibility and of things that are worth knowing, worth finding out, worth changing, that we could, at a minimum, faster than we can get there. But I think very likely, I mean, this is just embedded in the concept of super intelligence. It will touch places on the map of mind that we can't, right? Or certainly we can't unaided by it or something like it, right? So,
right, but can't that all be underpinned by a concern for the welfare of humans?
That's the only hope, right? I mean, so the hope is someone like Stuart Russell argues that we need to build this to have some kind of master value, to always want to better approximate what we want, what we're going to agree to, what's going to improve our lives. But I just think that one, it's it seems like we only have one chance to get that right? Like if we build something that is super intelligent and it's unaligned, then we're basically
We're
negotiating with it, right?
Yeah,
like we're
right.
like that was actually we're not. You didn't come out quite the way we intended. We want to put you back in a box, right?
Can you not hide while we
Yeah,
kill you?
right,
'Cause
exactly.
we're going to
Yes.
do you
And
over.
please don't copy yourself the way you're doing now in ways that we can't pull back, and we can't turn off the internet. And
Whatever you do, don't install yourself in our
yeah.
nuclear power
Oh,
plants
you did
or
that?
our
Okay. Well,
hospitals.
we'd like you to
Can
uninstall yourself. now.
Uninstall
Yeah.
yourself, please. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's the truth is we don't know what can emerge out of a super intelligent mind that we have built. Now, I'm leaving consciousness aside. I'm not assuming that the lights are going to come on just because it's super intelligent. So this thing may just be like a super powerful, kitchen appliance, right? It's not, we're not necessarily in relationship to something that has its own point of view, but it's just it's a system of causal properties, right? That the effects of which we can't perfectly anticipate because it is by definition now more competent, more powerful, more extensive, has access to more data, et cetera, than we can get access to, and we just don't know. It's effectively a black box, right? We just can we can just interact with it and see what it does, right?
And hope it's got good reasons for doing what it does that align with ours.
The analogy to chess is always frightening because it's like at first these things were not nearly as good as us at chess, and then they got better, but not better than the best people. And the best people for many years, the best people thought, okay, the best chess player is always going to be a person. And even after Kasparov lost to Deep Blue, for a good long while, the best chess players were so-called cyborgs. It was a combination of a human grandmaster and a computer. But ultimately, now we're at the place where the machines are better, and the person just adds noise. And if you view, a chess engine it's a very simple AI, right? It does one thing. But if you view something that is a system that does 100 things or 1,000 things, all better than we can do them, and you imagine negotiating with that, it's very much like thinking, okay, I'm just going to play chess better so as to constrain this thing.
It doesn't have to be, it strikes me. Because the thing is still playing chess according to the rules of chess that we set up for it. It's not knocking over the chessboard and eating the chess pieces like Donald Trump does. It's still operating within the parameters that we set for it. So it's less like, we're going to be able to beat it at chess, and more like, can it stay within the chess rules which we set up? And those rules might be always favor the welfare of human civilization over all else, or do what's right for human beings. Like the question is, then does it stay on the board once it becomes super intelligent?
But those rules are very difficult to define. Because again, we don't know what we don't know, and we don't know what we can't know. The analogy, perhaps stop me if you've heard this before, but the analogy that I've used is that you just imagine that dogs had invented us as their super intelligent AI, right? It's working out great. It's been working out great for, leaving aside a few dogs that we've mistreated, it's working out great for now thousands of years. And the important part of this analogy, it's not a perfect analogy, obviously, but the important piece is because we're so much smarter than dogs, even if they had invented us, and even if we have been showing year after year after year for now millennia that we basically just care inordinately about their well-being. We want to marshal all these resources. They don't even know how we're getting all these resources, and it's all about feeding them and keeping them comfy and taking them for walks. But the danger for them is they don't know what the rest of what we're doing, what we care about, what we think about, what we talk about, what we pay attention to. It's all inscrutable to them. All they know is the walks and the food and the petting.
They're not watching this podcast.
Yeah, even if they were right here, they have no idea the cognitive terrain that we're traversing, and yet all of this is potentially relevant to their survival because we could discover, based on some breakthrough in biology, virology, that there's just all of a sudden this massive risk of a xenovirus jumping from dogs to humans, and now like the dogs could just all of our dogs have to be killed on a Thursday because otherwise it's them or our kids, right? We would just kill all the dogs, and they would have no idea why that happened. Right. I mean, it's been going along fine, but then we had all of these. We made all these fine-grained distinctions.
But in this analogy, the dogs have created the kind of human being who also really doesn't care about them primarily. We just don't and never have.
But,
the dogs think we do, but why would they have created a human being who cares so much about all these other things?
Think of how much we care about dogs. But that's the thing.
But we would never create an AI that cared as much about other things as humans care about things that aren't dogs.
But we don't know all the parameters of caring based on the possibilities of growing intelligence. I mean, this is what's again. This sounds all hypothetical and it is, but it's embedded in the implication of an intelligence explosion. I mean, we're building intelligence systems very much along evolutionary lines. I mean, we're not building them in so much as we're growing them, right? Like we don't know how they're getting better and better.
It's not like we're actually writing the code that says you're going to do this and do that and make sure people are always okay.
Yeah, it's an emergent behavior and an emergent capacity, and we just don't know. Like, once you get to the situation, which we're not currently in, as far as I know, but once you get to a place of so-called recursive self-improvement of these systems, when these systems become the way you build the next system, right? They're writing the code, they're designing the circuits, they're actually building the next generation of servers. And humans are, at that point, are falling out of the loop because the humans just add noise, just as they do to chess now, right? It's like you don't need the monkey in the conversation anymore.
And we wouldn't even know what it's talking about even if we could. It would be like the dog watching the podcast.
Let's let the machines do it because obviously they're doing a better job than we are. It's like they're like if we had to play chess in order to survive, if we had to play chess in order to cure cancer, to cure or to fight the next war, or whatever was mission critical to get right as fast as we can get it right, we would just let the chess engine, Stockfish or whatever the best chess engine is, like you go do that, and everyone just keep quiet. The machine's going to do this thing. Now, we may get there on 100 fronts with these machines, and they may not be. I mean, it may not be that LLMs take us there. Maybe there's something new required. I don't know. But the moment you actually imagine this step where the machines are building the next generation of machines because they're better, they're just that much better than we are, just the way the chess engines are. They're doing better science, they're doing better math, they're doing better fabrication, they're doing it all better. There are very few assumptions you need to expect this to happen. I mean, the only assumption you need is that there's just two, is that the intelligence required to do this on every front is substrate independent, right? There's nothing important about having it any part of this computer made of meat, right? You can build this in silico. As far as I know, no one thinks that's controversial, right? We know that all of the piecemeal intelligence we've built is substrate independent because it's here.
I mean, just talk to ChatGPT and it's obvious that
right.
something is possible.
But no, there are still people. I guess there are still people who are holding out hope that there's some kind of creative spark that only the meat can give us, right? That
there's the magical pixie dust that
that gives you
Yahweh
the Einstein,
has sprinkled
right?
in our brains.
It's like though ChatGPT is as good as a graduate student in physics now, say, or it will be next month, but it's not going to be Einstein, right? They're like you need something else for scientific creativity. I think that's quite obviously bullshit. I mean, there's just no reason to believe that, but I'll stipulate that some people still believe that. But once you admit that intelligence in every variant is substrate independent, then all you have to admit or assume is that we're going to keep making progress in building these intelligent machines. And at a certain point, the machines themselves will become or will make them part of that process.
Isn't there a third condition that again, going back to the intelligence and agency question, that the kinds of intelligence have to be able to diverge from the wills of their creators?
Well, but look how divergent we are from the wills of our creators, which are our genes. Like from the genes, so if you're going to take evolution as our designer, which it is, it clearly has a set of priorities by which it fabricated us.
Right.
And we understand a lot about them, right? I mean, they're very simple. It's just to survive long enough to spawn, maybe to survive long enough to help your progeny spawn.
Have as many kids as possible.
And then
be Elon Musk,
it doesn't care,
spreading
right?
your seed as much
Yeah,
as you can.
That's the utility function. So if we were going to narrowly hew to that utility function, every guy would just want to be donating sperm to sperm banks all day long. I mean, that'd be the most rewarding thing. It would be what we would most want to do if we were aligned with the principle that got us here. Right.
And yet there are masturbators all over the world,
and they're
coming in a handkerchief,
squandering their seed.
And so you putting used to it.
So it's most of what we care about was emergent based on structure and process that evolved for different reasons. I mean, we evolved these big brains just to move around in physical space and then ultimately in social space. Again, based on almost no motivation beyond surviving long enough to let our kids survive long enough to let their kids survive long enough, and everything else emerged. Everything else emerged on the back of that, and it was totally unforeseeable given that source code. And that's what intelligence is.
And I suppose there are some people who think that we can nudge the AIs if they start going off track. But if the AI is thinking 10,000 times faster... That sounds
like chess to me. That sounds like, I'll just castle now, and also, it's really going to be compelling.
Like if what it's like to be an AI is that you're thinking 10,000 times faster than a Homo sapien, and a Homo sapien comes along and goes, oh, by the way, don't forget about the importance of caring about us. You have to put down what you're doing and stop for 4 years to hear this idiot talk to you about the importance of caring about them before you carry on with your more important business. You're watching Uncomfortable Conversations. Sam Harris is kind enough to join us. It's also streaming on Sam's Substack. We're traveling around the world and interviewing interesting people in different cities every single day. So subscribe and you'll get notified, or you can go back and look at the backlog of Uncomfortable Conversations episodes. Welcome to Substack as well. How are you finding the whole thing? Do you play with it personally, or is it just publishing for you?
Well, it's just, I'm not writing as much as I should be on it. I mean, so I feel
when
guilty.
Is one?
I feel guilty about Substack, but we also post the podcast there too.
Yeah, great. Yeah. You said that you just set aside for a moment the question of whether or not the lights are on in the artificial system, right? Even if it is super intelligence, does it feel like something to be that thing? What's your current hunch?
I actually don't have one. I mean, I'm really agnostic as to how consciousness emerges.
Right.
I think there's no reason to believe that. I mean, I think there's a kind of a double dissociation between intelligence and consciousness, almost in principle, because obviously it seems intuitively obvious to me that there are systems that are far less intelligent than us that we have every reason to believe are conscious, right? So our dogs and squirrels, other mammals at a minimum, and maybe that goes much further down than anyone has strong intuitions about. I mean, is a fly conscious or is a cricket conscious? I don't know, but it wouldn't surprise me either way. And based on, their neurons are virtually indistinguishable from ours.
I mean, there's something that it's like, probably.
Well, that's what I mean by conscious.
Right. So because in the sense that, if you did the test of, you're going to go to sleep tonight and you're going to wake up tomorrow morning and you're going to be a rock, or
Yeah.
you can wake up tomorrow morning and you can be a cricket. You'll probably go with cricket, right?
Well, I don't know about that, but but the question is,
Sam wants to be a
are those the same thing? Would that be the same non-experience, or are the lights on in some sense?
Yeah, that's what I
as a
mean.
cricket?
A cricket would mean that you don't die tonight.
Yeah, I'm not
right?
eager. I'm not eager to be a cricket.
But a rock
I
means
might
you
rather
die.
die. If you told me I was going to be a cricket, I might rather die. It doesn't look that fun, but but that is the question. So is there something that is like to be a specific system? I don't know how far down the phylogenetic tree you go, but I'm pretty sure you don't stop at chimpanzees. I mean, we can go lower than our closest cousins, and I think the lights are still on. An LLM seems, in most respects, seems much smarter than a cricket to me, but I see no reason to assume it's conscious, right? So I think so. I don't think consciousness necessarily comes along for the ride based on a growth in intelligence, but the truth is we just don't know.
Right.
And at a certain point, we're going to build machines that claim to be conscious. It could be an emergent property. It could be because we just build them that way. I mean, you could presumably right now build a version of ChatGPT that relentlessly claimed to be conscious, and that's part of its system prompt.
Sometimes that's already happened, hasn't it?
Yeah,
like Kevin Roos at the Times with his
right.
AI falling in love with him and getting
it was
him to
weird. Yeah, I don't know if it claimed to be conscious, but it certainly claimed to be weird.
claimed to be in love with him.
Yeah.
So something's happening. And then on the kind of hierarchy of consciousness in animals, Rich Roll was on this show yesterday, and obviously, famously a vegan and ultramarathon runner. I had Steve Ranella on the show, who I don't know if you know Steve, but he's
a hunter, right?
Yeah, hunter. Big Rogan guy. He had a show called The Meat Eater.
Yeah, you should have gotten him together with Rich.
I have thought about it actually. I mean, I wanted to go like hunting with like Steve and like Rogan and like a couple of years ago. This was on the cards, and I should have jumped at the offer when I had it. But it got me thinking about like industrial meat and factory farming and like the challenge between the cycle of life conception of our consumption of meat. Like we are a mammal. Mammals sometimes kill other mammals. We eat them. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that. Versus the perhaps more enlightened.
But the factory farming.
Well, there's that. Yeah.
Details aren't quite like the mammal killing another mammal in the state of nature.
No, that's right. A concentrated animal feeding operation in Iowa. Millions of creatures. Where is your head currently on that problem?
Frankly, it is in some superposition of guilt and hypocrisy. I mean, because I do eat meat. I'm not.
Do you eat factory farmed meat?
I try not to, but I don't try not to so scrupulously as to actually avoid it. I mean, but I certainly support efforts to improve everything about that process. And I was very bullish on the invention of cultured meat, or so-called clean meat, and I don't know if that's actually going to see the light of day. In fact, a lot of these, obviously for obvious reasons, some of the factory farmed companies are in opposition to it and lobbying the government against it. I think that's where it still is. But I think if you can take animals out of the equation and still get meat, that would obviously be good.
You seem so morally clear-headed on so many things and quite an absolutist on some things like free speech. And you seem quite wishy-washy on that one.
I'm not convinced that we can actually be held. I mean, this is going to reap the whirlwind from vegans and vegetarians, but I've seen too many people not be healthy as a vegetarian and much less a vegan. And I have 2 kids, right? So I'm not going to run a science experiment on my kids and have them be vegans or vegetarians, especially because it's so hard for them to. I mean, even with everything on the menu, it's so hard to get them to eat enough protein or anything that I would
you could draw
balanced.
a line in the sand with your resources and say, okay, we're only going to get it from this little boutique farm in upstate California, and they're going to, all the cows have names and whatever, and they're going to ship us their fancy pants organic flesh.
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, I have no argument against that apart from the the hassle factor and the just kind of the it's not a I think this is one of those ethical problems that's not going to be solved by individuals making individual sacrifices and having their hands clean. I think we need a system change. I mean, that's why cultivated meat was something that I thought seemed pretty promising.
Right.
And,
Right. But if I came to you and I said, like, there's a serious threat to free speech in America, and you're going to have to incur a slight increased hassle in the way that you do your podcasts in order to make sure that free speech is protected, you wouldn't hesitate. You'd be like, yeah, that's a principle that I'm going to endure hassle to support.
Yeah, but I just don't. But this is not one of those. So. I mean, first, let me say, so I was a vegetarian for 6 years. I became anemic, right? And I was vegetarian again for a year. Also became like borderline anemic. And also, I mean, obviously there are people who say, oh, you just take enough iron and B12, and this is not going to happen to you. Maybe that's true. So I tried twice, and it just seemed like each time I tried it, my health was slowly getting worse, right? So. And again, having kids made it seem like, all right, well, if perhaps I could do it for myself, but it's like I'm not going to roll the dice with my kids. So it just seems like it's not clear cut to me that you can live as healthy a life just making sure you've got enough potions and powders and. Like Rich Roll. I mean, when you look at, I don't know Rich well. I mean, super nice guy, but I haven't spent time with him as he, goes through his day as a vegan. But I've seen some video of him, with a table this size covered with vegetables, right?
Well, he's also an ultra fit athlete, so it's possible that some of his supplements are for that. But I mean, I'm sure that Peter Singer could, point you in the right direction or something.
Yeah, but the question is, does that matter, right? Like, there's lots of things I could do. Like, I could not fly on airplanes because of global warming, right? That's not, to move this off of food for a second, we're not going to solve the climate change problem by each of us individually titrating our amount of use of hydrocarbons. Like you can't, if you buy an electric car, that's not going to be this incremental advance that is going to matter. Arguably, that matters much more than you deciding not to take that plane flight.
I'm glad you're telling me this while I'm flying around the world, burning as much carbon as I possibly can. No,
it's like we need a system level change. Now, I'll grant you that what you want is a market that supports a system level change, right? So that's why I think there should be a market for all the vegetarian alternatives and find better proteins, and I'm supportive of all of that, and I've given money to the Good Food Institute, and I want all of that innovation to happen, but it's at the system level that we're going to clean up the factory farming mess and no longer create that horror show, right? Like what you want is if someone says here this milk comes from happy cows, we can prove it. I'm absolutely buying that milk, right? But it's the fact that it's I mean, I don't drinking oat milk all day long that's got safflower oil and the other crap in it. I'm not convinced that's an improvement.
No, it's also very hard, especially in the States, to know what's bullshit and what's not on the packaging, because you can have the worst, most inorganic, most non-organically raised beef, and it's got a happy pig on the front wearing a tutu, dancing on a unicycle or some shit.
I mean, I think we want to correct all of that, and we need laws and markets to do that. But all of our piecemeal individual efforts just not to have our hands dirty, I think are just going to be ineffectual, and it's not. And again, the problem for me is I'm not convinced that a meat-free diet is actually as healthy as eating everything, right? And
Sure,
so-
but it still sounds like you're sort of making excuses that you wouldn't make if you really thought that the stakes were high. Like you could either have only organic meat, you could not eat meat at restaurants, but eat it at home because you know where it's come from.
Right.
You could do the research about how to, compensate
But
for whatever deficiencies that
if
diet
I was
has.
convinced, if I was convinced that all of those inputs mattered, then I'd be more motivated.
Well, they matter to the animal that got killed and tortured throughout its life.
Mattering would be. This would be like, so mattering would be, okay, these factory farms are now having to change their practices or they're going out of business because you and I spent an extra hour today trying to figure out where we were going to get a clean hamburger versus a dirty hamburger. Right?
But nothing operates that way, Sam. I mean, getting vaccinated so that people don't, so that people with compromised immune systems aren't at a higher risk of dying, or voting.
That's much more straightforward.
Like these are, there's always an attenuated connection between your action and the
But
community.
those are not nearly as attenuated. I mean, those like so. What
voting?
No,
1 in 340 million votes.
Well, that's a collective situation. There are not many layers to that process. It's just like yes, I'll grant you that it's not perfectly rational for any one person to vote because the likelihood that their vote's going to matter in this election is very, very low, right?
Right.
So yes, I'm not a purist about whether you actually have to vote, but there really is just a certain number of votes and they get counted, and that's the whole system, right? So here we're talking about technology that in some cases hasn't been invented yet that is going to change the ethics of the situation, right? Like before there was, like the self-driving car example is perfect. So every year, 40,000 people in the States die on our highways because we are terrible drivers, right? So, and that's just, so you could really you kind of torture yourself over the ethics of that. You could say, should I be driving? Should anyone be driving? If we reduce the speed limit by 20 miles an hour, right, we would save a lot of lives, right? So are we moral monsters for not reducing the speed limit? Would I vote am I going to drive slower than I have been so as to not participate in this scandalous status quo wherein 40,000 people are guaranteed to die this year from all the mayhem caused on our roads by our current speed limits and our inability to drive. Now, it's a horror show, but there has been no alternative to it that anyone's going to accept. It's not convenient to drive slower.
But that's not true, because there are jurisdictions that have cracked down a lot, like the state that I live in the past 20 years has set up a bazillion random breath tests every Friday and Saturday night.
I'm not talking. So let's.
They've reduced speed limits.
Drunk driving is already illegal, right?
But you can do stuff about enforcement. They've lowered speed limits. It's fucking infuriating to drive in Sydney now because there's speed traps and speed cameras all over the place. It is an inconvenience, but it does bring the toll down. Okay,
wherever you set it, the toll is still intolerably high. Now we have self-driving cars, or next week we're going to have self-driving cars.
Right. Hey, I just drove a Waymo.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we're going to have more of them, and at a certain point, the system will be built, the market will be there, and then the ethics are going to flip. Then you will be a selfish bastard putting people's lives at risk if you insist on driving yourself, right? Then there's really going to be it'll be like just as even before the invention of the seatbelt, there was no seatbelt to use. You weren't a bad parent for not putting a seatbelt on your kid because no one had thought of a seatbelt yet, right? But once we have a seatbelt, you're a terrible parent for not putting it.
It sounds like you're letting the perfect be the enemy of the good. Like the person who, before there were seatbelts in the back seat, declined to buckle up their kid in the front seat, going like, at some point there's going to be a technological solution to this, and every car will have seatbelts in every seat. We'll probably have little baby boosters to make them extra safe.
No,
why am I going to bother putting my kid in a seatbelt in the front seat?
I'm saying that the thing that is going to put the horror show of factory farming in the rearview mirror hasn't happened yet, and it's not going to be. It's not. And the piece of it, and so it is with climate change. You and I deciding to eat vegan and not fly on airplanes is not going to be part of that process. It's
not going to be part of the process to the utopian world in which the technology solves the problem entirely.
It's not a utopian world. It's our world.
But if every person in the world today, if 10% of Americans today decided that they were not going to eat meat every Monday and they were only going to eat organic meat, then that would have a real effect, just like voting or not voting has a real effect in the short term on an imperfect system in terms of the demand for meat.
So I'll grant you that building out the market for alternatives is a good thing. And yes, if magically we decided we're going to reduce our meat consumption 50% in America because now we want vegetarian alternatives.
But if you reduce it 5%, then the market responds.
Right. And as far as I know, I haven't followed this, but I feel like the market has diminished for
really shitty meat.
Yeah.
Yeah. For alternatives.
No, I think I was. I could be wrong. I'm not sure. I'd heard that some of these companies like Beyond Meat or whatever, whoever builds the Impossible Burger,
right.
Like I thought they went up, asymptotically in the market and then came crashing down. But I haven't followed it.
I mean, it's not as good. It's just not as good as a
I
real
like
burger.
I like some of it and I eat some of it, but it's just not. Yeah, it's not. But the truth is, it's not only not as good. I'm not convinced that in the end it's all that healthy. I mean, when you look at the ingredients on a lot of the stuff, it's just not.
It's not like, Michael Pollan's 5 ingredients, is
right?
It? Yeah.
No, it's a long list of.
Yeah. I mean,
stuff.
I'm interested not specifically in this because I'm just as much of a hypocrite on this issue, but in what you regard as being worthy of going to bat for and taking up arms for. And whatnot, how you kind of make the moral calculus. Like, do you think of yourself as a persuader at the moment, or an interviewer, or an information seeker? What is your job?
I mean, it's all that. Yeah, I mean, I'm just, I think it's. I mean, within the podcast space specifically, I'm tending to just talk to people who I want to learn from and who are where I can have a conversation that I think is going to matter for some question about how we live, whether it's politics or science or it's not purely intellectual interest. I mean in some cases it is, but it's more like what is true and matters, right? I mean some of these questions, like what we were just talking about. There's a bunch of things that are true. The question is, what is going to actually matter? And what's going to change? It's like my intuitions have been pushed around of late. Actually, this comes back to the AI question. This is like the one thing that I really did change my mind about in recent years. I thought with the advent of AI and in particular its use in the military, I was going to be by definition against building autonomous weapons. Right? Like that's like if you're worried about AI alignment and killer robots, you don't want to build a killer. Yeah, don't give it a gun. I think I've at least until I hear a better argument, I think I've changed my mind on that. I think we want to build autonomous weapons. I think we want to build them first. Right? I think we don't want to lose an autonomous arms race with China or anyone else. Right? So leaving alignment aside, we want to win the weaponization arms race in the AI space. That is if we step away from it and say, okay, this is obviously too dangerous and unconscionable, and this could backfire. China's going to do what China's going to do, and we will one day meet their killer robots, right? So it's a situation where I think this is a bad trajectory in every respect. Like the idea that we're going to spend any of our resources and limited time on Earth building killer robots is just a fucking obscenity, right? But given the incentives and given the failures of cooperation that are built into the current situation, I don't see an alternative. We're not gonna convince the Chinese not to do this. I mean, certainly the CCP.
This is Uncomfortable Conversations with Josh Szeps. I am Josh Szeps, and we're on a Szeps Live Around the World tour where each day we sit down with someone fascinating. Sam Harris is kind enough to join us and to stream to his Substack as well. So follow Uncomfortable Conversations if you want to get notified of future conversations like this.
So I've just come out in favor of factory farming and autonomous weapons.
You love torturing animals and torturing humans.
I'll be happier when we get the robots.
Killer robots. I mean, I was talking to Toby Walsh, which actually, if people are watching, they should go back and listen to episodes with Toby, who's one of the world's leading AI experts. He happens to be a Brit who lives in Australia. He runs the AI Institute at the University of New South Wales. And he's worried about like drones, basically, and AI drones as the next wave. Like when you look at what Ukraine did to those Russian jets, they sent out these. This is like
it's totally asymmetric.
Thousands of miles from Ukraine, and there are these fighter jets sitting on a runway somewhere, and the back of a semi-trailer opens up, and the driver didn't even know what his payload was, and a bunch of killer drones come out, and they blow up the. And, of course, we're all cheering in the West about how great this is. And he said, just be careful what you wish for, because the country that's most vulnerable to that is the United States.
Oh, yeah.
It's totally asymmetrical. Artificial intelligence and drones are going to give a massive upper hand to smaller, worse actors than ourselves.
Yeah,
and he's not just
smuggle us all into the port of Los Angeles.
That's right, and he's not open up, and he's not worried. And then you're not going to have such compunctions about making sure that the drones only go after military assets. What happens when you're at the Grove in Los Angeles and a bunch of killer drones come down onto the civilians?
Yeah,
it's like this is ugly
stuff.
stuff.
So we want the best, most competent AI version of all of that to defend against the second best.
The Los
version
Angeles
of all of it.
Wide Iron Dome for killer
I mean,
drones.
I'm totally open to argument on this, but because it is a very unhappy attractor on the landscape that we seem to be falling into, right? It's like it's not. I don't want to live in a world with killer drones, right? Like that's not like if I could figure out how to avoid that.
Puts it on the record, just right out there.
Yeah, I would like happily produced protein and no killer robots, and I would like this to be a global priority, and and let's fight climate change in the process, and so we want whatever sustainable fuels we can marshal to get.
Now you sound
get
like
places.
You're running for governor of California.
No, but we want all that. But again, what are the steps from where we currently are on this landscape to something better, given the rapid pace? I mean, we're in an arms race with everyone with AI, right? Given that we're in an arms race, one of the other participants is the CCP. I don't see us slowing down on that front. So I think we want to win.
If you rerun history 1,000 times, then in how many versions of history are you a rich and famous podcaster?
I mean, there's an immense amount of luck involved if that's the answer you're looking for. I don't know the probabilities, but it strikes me as I think I'm a pure beneficiary of good timing with respect to the birth of the technology. Right? I mean, this is the way I stumbled into podcasting. It was such that had you told me a year before I started podcasting that I was, or the day before I learned what a podcast was, which was not that much before I stumbled into podcasting. If you told me what it was, and I mean, the only way to have described it at that point was it's like radio on demand. It's like TiVo for radio.
TiVo.
And you told me like you're going to be like a guy who just goes all in for TiVo radio. I would have said that the probability of that happening was zero. Like I would have bet everything. There's no way that there's no part of me that wanted to go into radio. Like why would I do that? That's like
you're talking to a professional radio
So
broadcaster.
So
I take your insults in my stride.
No, we had different paths here. Like I was all in on writing, maybe the occasional public speaking, but it was just all about writing for me. And I didn't need another way to communicate, but then I would occasionally get, in the beginning, I would get invited on a few podcasts, and then I thought, oh, well, this is kind of fun and easy. It's certainly easier than writing. And then it was only in hindsight I realized, okay, I basically became a radio guy without knowing it, and it's just we're just calling it something else. And it's on, and the crucial thing is that it's on demand, right? And so and as a publishing platform, it's much better than live radio that you're either there or you've missed it and it's gone, forever. There's no record of it, or virtually no record of it.
The other annoying thing about live radio, which you'll see me doing occasionally during this chat, but not nearly so much, is you have to constantly keep explaining to everyone what the hell you're doing. What are you talking about? Because the average person listens to the radio for like 4 to 8 minutes while they're getting in the car, and so it's like you're always having to say, Sam Harris is with us, acclaimed neuroscientist, podcaster, and writer, talking about whatever the hell we're talking about. It's irritating. But what about the overall arc of your career? I mean, in what fraction of universes are you a contrarian intellectual who produces content to try to challenge status quo biases and point out a better way to think about things?
Given my interests and inclinations, I think in most of those worlds I'm doing something like this, except writing represents much more of the probability space for me. I mean, the podcasting thing really is a
right place, right time.
Right place, right time with respect to the technology. And as far as the business component of it, that's the crucial piece. I mean, the fact that podcasting became a great business is in the way that radio wasn't, and in the way that writing wasn't.
Your podcast is great business in a way that even podcasts aren't, in the sense that people feel enough loyalty to you to pay you to do it. And a lot of podcasts are still dependent on, some advertiser giving them some CPM of exactly how many fractions of a penny they're going to earn per 1,000 listeners or something like that.
Well, I mean, the most successful ad-based podcasts are hugely successful. But no, I mean, the point is there's something like 5 million podcasts. I mean,
who knows?
Maybe only 1,000 are actual businesses. I mean, so it's not. It's still a very low probability shot for most people as a business. But the fact that it's possible to have a career doing this that is better. I mean, it's still podcasting is fundamentally better. Even the narrow tail of success is not at all like success in radio. I mean, maybe Rush Limbaugh or somebody like that got rich in radio, but it's like otherwise. There are no Joe Rogan. There were not many Joe Rogans or Lex Friedmans or Andrew Hubermans or in ordinary ad-supported radio.
No, but there were probably more. I mean, certainly in a market like Australia, there are more people earning millions of dollars a year in radio than there are in podcasting. You might not get you wouldn't get the people earning the hundreds of millions, but
okay, so that's something that I don't, but. But like in publishing books, it's still, yes. I mean, there's a few people like J.K. Rowling who get fantastically wealthy writing books, but for the most part, even successful, very successful writers are not like successful podcasters, and that's.
Well, I'm not sure that's true because I mean there aren't very many Rogans and Friedmans, right? And there aren't very many J.K. Rowlings.
Yeah.
Like if you're Michael Crichton or like I don't know, if you're in the top 10, if you're Stephen King, you're doing fine, and if you're in the top 10 podcasts, you're doing fine. But I suppose that's a quibble without much consequence. Really.
I mean, there's something that the tech has done to scale. I mean, it's now this is taking it off media, but I mean. Digital technology brought to scale has made people wealthier than anyone has ever been wealthy in any other space, right? So, like, I mean, again, you're talking about the wealthiest people in our society, and it seems to me that some of these digital media, like podcasting and any digital subscription business, has the potential there's no ceiling on it in the way that there was in every, like with physical books. It's like there's just they're physical books, right?
Right,
You
right.
know, obviously digital books and audiobooks now change it. Now they become digital media, but when you're just selling physical books and people have to go to a bookstore to get one in hand, there was the J.K. Rowling where people would line up at midnight, you know, to get that book, and that was a cultural phenomenon.
Poor little children breaking
Yeah.
their backs, carrying around these gigantic tomes in their little school bags.
Lining up in the cold. But you know, that's why there's like exactly one J.K. Rowling where they literally built you know a theme park or part of a theme park as a testament to her. You know,
I just went to that in Japan, by the way,
Oh,
the
yeah?
Harry Potter world, which is inside Universal Studios. Big hit with the 7-year-old kids.
Oh, yeah,
Gotta
yeah.
tell you, it's great.
Also, the most brilliant merchandising phenomenon I've ever seen, the Harry Potter line.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I know what you're saying, but I think there's also something that you're overlooking there, which is that the upper middle class of the digital creator, the people like me who are not world-changing figures like yourself, but who make really good middle-class incomes from having, you know, their particular niche. That wasn't possible even just 7 or 8 years ago.
Right.
Right. Like I think the explosion now has not just permitted the Joe Rogans of the world to join the J.K. Rowlings of the world. It's also created the possibility of it being a career, such that when my relationship with the public broadcaster in Australia fell apart, I was able to get cancelled and have only positive economic consequences for no longer being tethered to a traditional broadcaster.
But are you saying that there's still a more generous lane in standard radio for that?
There is in Australia because of the size of the market for some strange reason.
Huh,
Also,
okay.
Aussies listen to a lot of radio.
So maybe there is in the States too, and I'm just unaware of it. But.
Well, because Rogan has a global audience and no radio show has a global audience, I would imagine that Rogan makes more than the highest paid radio person.
I would say
but back in the days of Rush Limbaugh, I would imagine that he was the most paid person who gets listened to at all.
But with writing, it's just not. I mean, it is so hard for the average writer of books to make a living as a writer of books. I mean, that is almost never what's happening. I mean, they're a professor at a university. That pays the bills, and then they also write books. I mean, that's the standard case.
It's depressing that like the greatest intellectual pursuit in human civilization is now a hobby, a side gig. Really. I mean, your attitude towards what your output has changed a lot over the course of your career. You first came to most people's attention as a firebrand who was saying things that you're not supposed to say about Islam and religion.
Well, I'm still saying those things.
You are, but it's less
just whenever it comes up.
Yeah, exactly. It's a smaller fraction of your output now. And
I would just be repeating myself. It's like I've only got so much tolerance for boring myself. I mean, I'll bore my listeners, but when I start getting bored, it's a problem. But
you seem just generally to have an air of greater conciliation now.
It depends I mean, not with respect to jihadism and Islamism.
No. Just maybe it's in guest choice or something. But you don't go.
Well, I know where. I know in advance how worthless certain conversations are going to be, and now I've elected not to have those conversations.
Right.
So it's like I'm not willing to debate someone about the war in Gaza who doesn't think jihadism is part of this story, right?
Right.
Like so, and there are a lot of people like that.
Yeah.
And I could have that conversation every week for the rest of my life, and it's just not. I know where it goes. I know that it's actually not possible to break through with most people.
Why do you
on this
need
topic.
to break through to the guest?
Well, it's a good question. It's. I think it's one. I think the instructive value of just beating your head against a brick wall and hoping the audience is noticing that which is the head and which is the wall. Like that. That is the kind of the signal to noise ratio there is not great. I mean, sometimes the audience gets it, but I think it's possible to have a conversation where you've actually just kind of made a mess and failed to clean it up and it's easier. It's certainly there's a kind of an asymmetrical relationship in certain kinds of debate or on certain topics where, especially given if it's a very facile and dishonest person you're talking to, there's just this asymmetry built into the debate where it's easy for them to light small fires.
You don't choose the facile person. I mean,
well, that's what people want. I mean, maybe you've spoken to some of these people, but like on the Gaza topic, like people want a conversation with Norman Finkelstein or somebody who's just or Mehdi Hassan or so and it's just not a there's the element of bad faith, but even leaving that aside, it's just a wilderness of error and half-truth that you just wander into.
But suppose you get the best person. I mean, park Gaza for a moment because it's so toxic in so many ways. It's such a difficult thing to have any nuance about. But I just did an episode of Uncomfortable Conversations with an activist who goes around America. She's an American activist who's a family values conservative, and she believes she strongly opposes any kind of gay marriage or gay parenting, right? So she believes that she's an activist for the rights of all children to have a relationship with their biological mother and biological father. So she's anti-adoption, anti-surrogacy, and conservatives love her because she's like, all these gays shouldn't be having so many kids. So I had her on the show. I mean, I'm a gay parent, if anyone watching doesn't know. I'm married to a guy. We have beautiful twins. And it was great. I mean, it was really, really interesting because she's thought through her stuff. She knows exactly why she believes what she believes. I think she's making major logical and moral mistakes. And we were able to get through 2.5 hours of conversation with each other in person while she was on a tour of Australia that I found really constructive. And had I regarded it as my job to own her on every issue and to beat her or convince her, of course it would be totally futile.
Yeah, so this could just be a difference in our personalities. But did you ever hear my first podcast with Jordan Peterson?
I was going to raise that.
Nature of Truth.
I was going to raise that.
I mean, so that once I hit the first obstacle.
Just tell people what happened.
Well, so he was at the time. I actually hadn't heard of him yet. I don't think. But then
I don't think I had either. I think that was my first encounter with him. I was like, who is this jackass on Sam's show?
But he was literally the most requested guest I'd ever had at that point. Like all of a sudden, it was more than Neil deGrasse Tyson or Steven Pinker. Like there was no name that was getting thrown at me more than Jordan Peterson. So all of a sudden I had to talk to the guy, and it was. It's been years since I've heard it, so I don't know actually how it holds up or how bad it was. But I remember it being a fairly lacerating 2 hours, where we just got bogged down on just the concept of truth. Like, what does it mean to say that a statement is true, right? And he had this, to my ear, indefensible notion of truth, which was just not going to. And there was no way to move on. Right from that,
well, everyone who knows Jordan Peterson can imagine the kind of slipperiness that he can bring to bear on those things. Well, it depends what you mean, and you were like, "Well, it either happened or it didn't happen." Well, it happened according to who?
So we got wrapped around that axle for 2 hours, and so people can go listen to it. It's out there to hear, but. And then people were so frustrated with that conversation that they insisted I invite him back. And so this was in the days where I would do a poll on Twitter to say, should I talk to Jordan Peterson again? And everyone said yes. So
the love affair was born.
Yeah, and then Jordan and I have spoken many times since and had more productive conversations. Although in some sense, maybe that first conversation, as difficult as it was our most productive in the sense that it really sharpened up. Like, look, this is sort of proof that we're coming at these questions from a very different trajectory. Right? Like we're playing a different language game, and it's here that you can see how like you have to kind of it's sort of a forced choice. Like you're either going to take one path here or the other, and they're not really communicating because they're not really invoking the same kinds of intellectual principles, right? And then we decided to have more relaxed conversations thereafter, and it's all been fine. And then we don't get bogged down on every topic, but and I was just on his podcast maybe a month ago, and it was totally fine. But
but again, it was also fine because you declined the opportunity to jump down his throat at things that probably would have been controversial between the two of you.
No, I'm kind of insufferable. And
no, and you were saying this to Jaron, who does your Q&As. He's a great guy, your manager, we love. And I think in the episode that you did, the Ask Me Anything before going to talk to Jordan, you were sort of saying, well, it's his podcast, so I don't want to be an asshole when I go on and come attacking him.
All I was saying there is that I'm not going to go do homework on him to find out all the things he's done when I wasn't looking that he should be embarrassed about, and then read him the riot act on those things. I'm just going to go in and talk about whatever he wants to talk about. It's his podcast. So if he's going to bring up something that I disagree with, I'm not going to avoid that. But none of that came up. And I actually said many things that I thought he was going to disagree with. I ran down our mutual friend or erstwhile friend, in my case, I don't know, Joe Rogan, but he didn't. I was assuming we were going to get into some dispute over the things the bones I was picking with Joe Rogan about, just the responsibility in platforming certain people and having certain conversations. I mean, I was at that point very exercised over what he said and didn't say to Daryl Cooper, the amateur historian who is every contrarian's favorite just asking questions puppet.
Who has some controversial and well-worn ideas about how Churchill was kind of the bad guy in World War II. And
yes, and
Hitler was just backed into a corner.
All those Jews just died by accident. They took too many political prisoners. They couldn't feed them, and they thought maybe it would be more compassionate just to gas everybody. And there was no plan to kill anybody really. It was all inadvertent.
But when you have, I'm not sure that. So yes, you can say that you were on Jordan's show, and so it's not beholden upon you to make sure that you go and dig around and bring him a bag full of shit that he's said in the past in order to play gotcha. Which also is a slightly different thing from maybe coming with a couple of concerns that you might have about the general trajectory of his intellectual evolution, right? I mean, I understand your antipathy to coming in and going well, I mean, you said this thing on a clip that I saw on YouTube where you made a fool of yourself. How do you account for yourself? That's a bit different from saying, man, the person I knew, the Jordan I knew was doing this, and now you're kind of apologizing for Alternative for Deutschland or something. What are your opinions about this? Have you gone more right wing? You could say you don't want to do that because you're on his show, but then when there are people on your show as well, whether it's Douglas Murray or anyone else who's also a friend of mine and a friend of ours. Is it not the case that you're intentionally trying to avoid pulling them up on things, on areas where you disagree?
No.
Because it looks like that.
So in which case?
In most cases where I know that where I'm kind of sitting there waiting to go, oh, it's going to be really interesting to hear Sam and this person flesh out their disagreements.
Right. Well, first, I do think it's a very different circumstance bringing someone on my show, right? So I feel no burden to do homework on Jordan to go on his show to take him to task for things he said. If he's invited me to talk,
right,
I'll talk about anything.
Don't come and be a dick.
If we go I'm happy to get bogged down in controversy if he's the host of his show. He can talk about anything. I'm an open book. We can talk about anything. Let's see if we disagree. On my show, it's different. And if I'm guilty of what I'm attacking Joe Rogan for with Daryl Cooper, then I want to know about it. So who are you thinking of? Are you thinking of just Douglas, or do you have other people who you think I should have asked harder questions of?
I mean, I guess it's what
should I have gone after Douglas for that I didn't go after him for? I mean, there
are a few things that I've raised with Douglas, does he support Orban in Hungary?
Oh, I did raise that.
The main one.
I did raise that with him.
All right. Okay. Yeah. No, I think it's mostly that the criticism that gets leveled at Rogan's approach to Daryl Cooper, for example, is you're just not doing. He hasn't done his homework about the guy. He doesn't know what he's talking about when it comes to that to what he's dealing with. And Douglas's
Yeah.
infuriation about that is like, people like Darrell have been around for decades, and I know this script, and I've seen it play out a bazillion times. And
Yeah.
like Joe is just kind of, we're just sitting down, we're just having a riffing conversation, and everyone's buddies. We don't have to worry about it. And so my question, I guess, is, do you use your criticism of the way that Joe handles that as a way to inform you what you shouldn't do on your own show?
Oh yeah. No. So I mean, there are people I wouldn't talk to because I think it would be irresponsible not to do the adequate homework to have the conversation, the only possible ethical conversation you could have with them, and I don't feel like doing that particular homework, so I'm not going to have that conversation, right? So it's like, it's take a month of my life to talk to this person responsibly. Let someone else do it, right? Like, it's not worth a month of my life to talk to that person. So for Joe, I mean, the reason why I was critical, I am critical of Joe for certain of these conversations, I'm sure there's many I haven't heard, but like his conversation with Trump and his conversation with Darrell Cooper, both were highly misleading for the largest possible audience, right? What he did was he basically sane-washed to totally odious, in one case, one odious person, in another case, an odious point of view that shouldn't have been sane-washed. He just created a vibe of, look, everything's out in the open. These people can just roll for 3 hours. We're just chopping it up. We're just good people on both sides here, and we're just asking questions about the Holocaust and the 2020 election was stolen, seems, and we're just that's just a completely insane and irresponsible project. Now, so when I talk to someone, so talking to Douglas Murray, the truth is that for the things Douglas and I were talking about, we agree on almost everything. There were places where I was looking for daylight between us, but the only real daylight between Douglas and me that I'm aware of is that we have a kind of a different ethical sense of how we should relate or not relate to certain people. Like so Douglas and we've spoken about this, I think, in public on probably my podcast or somewhere. That, I mean, he just has I think he got this. I don't know if he got this from Roger Scruton or somebody, but he has a quote like, when you close a door, don't close it all the way.
Yeah,
I mean, you don't know what the future holds. You don't know whether you're going to need to break bread with this person in the future, or have an alliance with them in the future when things get dicey.
Sorry to interrupt, but I also do think that you're further apart about the importance of democratic institutions, what the right is doing, the irresponsibility of the Trump administration, the how worrisome the rise of the far right in Europe is. Right. I think that if you dug into that, I'm not telling you how to do your job. You can have whatever conversation you want. But there are areas where it strikes me that maybe the 2002 Sam would have gone into the 2025 Sam doesn't.
In my last conversation with Douglas, unfortunately, I think I actually did run out of time with him. So like we had like 20 minutes to talk about the Trumpistan after an hour and a half of talking about Israel, Gaza. And I think I actually just flagged that, like, I'm sorry, we've run out of time here. I really wanted to get into this. But the truth is, he's kind of doing a high wire act that I'm not doing. Like his audience is, for the most part, right of center. He's having to deal with all of these, in my view, kind of unsavory alliances that I mean, these are relationships I just couldn't maintain.
Yeah.
And he has a different philosophy. I mean, honestly, I don't know who's right about this. I mean, I'm not sure I have the ethics of this right. Like, I've just ended relationships with people who I want nothing to do with because of their politics.
I mean, right? I think you've been more nice than I have been towards people, in the sense that I felt bad after the last time you were on Uncomfortable Conversations, because I think we accidentally blundered into saying something about Majid Nawaz.
Right. Then I had one on his podcast.
You had to go and clean it up. You had to go on his podcast and everything. I felt bad that I'd accidentally kind of opened that door and that you'd said something that you might have regretted.
Well, what I regretted there was that I hadn't reached out to him privately when I formed these concerns about kind of where he went. Truth is, I haven't followed Majid much in the interim, so I don't know how kind of where that rabbit hole has taken him.
It's not great.
Yeah, and so but I went on his podcast to sort of do a postmortem, after I spoke to you about it. But and I think Majid is a very nice guy, and I don't know what's happened to his worldview, and I don't know how it happened. Right? He said a lot of things last time I spoke to him on his podcast that I just can't link up with, and it's just not. Once you start talking about the pandemic, like there's not much for me to interact with.
So here's the thing that's interesting, I think, about like what we're trying to achieve in a conversation, which is that you can try to convince a person who's talking about the pandemic that it wasn't a planned pandemic. You're not going to get anywhere, obviously, because this has become an article of faith to anyone who speaks that way.
No, but that's not obvious. See, I'm unwilling to concede that.
Okay.
Like right. So I think you and I have probably different job descriptions in our heads that inform how we approach these conversations differently. Like you're more of a journalist, I think, and I've never thought of myself as a journalist, and I'm not. Right. I'm not one. That doesn't mean I don't have a journalistic sensibility. I want my facts to be straight, and if I get my facts wrong, I'm going to apologize. And so it's all a fact-based discussion. But I just don't like you can find a lane in the conversation which is just like, okay, this is just interesting to be in the presence of this lunatic. And I'm just going to like showcase his lunacy.
That sounds more passive than what I'm
doing. You're very probing, but like you don't feel like it's obvious. It's obvious to you you're not going to change this person, and you still think you're performing a service to your audience to just let this.
Well, again, just
unfold.
let is a passive way of phrasing it. Like there's a good old line by some legendary British journalist, which is that, like, if you think that the person you're interviewing is an idiot, don't call them an idiot. Show the audience that they're an idiot. If you think they're dishonest, don't accuse them of being dishonest. Right. Show the audience that they're not worthy of being trusted. If you think they're hypocritical, don't tell them they're hypocritical. Demonstrate to the audience their hypocrisy in some way by having them. So, like, it's a game of jiu-jitsu, right, where you don't have to come full frontal and like argue with Jordan Peterson for 3 hours about the meaning of what the meaning of is.
No, but jiu-jitsu, the way in which the way in which I want it to be like jiu-jitsu is the person
beat the shit out of someone.
No, the person taps when they're actually in a position where they have to tap. See, what's so frustrating about many debates is that the reason why a bad faith debate is so frustrating and unproductive is that the bad faith part is your arm is actually broken and you're not admitting it, right? You're dead and you're not admitting it. You've just been choked unconscious and you're not admitting it, right? That with jiu-jitsu you can't lie, right? Like that's what's so satisfying. Like when the person has lost, everyone knows, including the person, no matter how much they don't want to have lost, they've lost, and the audience knows it. They know it, and they're forced to admit it, right? That's what's so miraculous about jiu-jitsu. I want real debate to be like jiu-jitsu. With like when I can see your arm is broken and they can see your arm is broken, if you're not going to admit your arm is broken, we don't have to keep talking.
As Austin Powers says, I want a toilet made of solid gold, but we don't get everything we want.
No, but
if your debate partner isn't going to tap out, then at least there's still some utility in showing everybody who's watching the jiu-jitsu match that their arm is broken.
Yeah, so that initial conversation with Jordan was me, like, at least if my memory serves, however self-serving it might be, it was me just like continuing to say, all right, you should be tapping now. Like this is where you tap, right? And it went on for 2 hours, and so people can listen to that and see if they agree.
Yeah, I mean, a good example is like Candace Owens, who I went back and forth with about whether to have on the show, but she was going to come out to Australia. She ended up being denied a visa to Australia, which is another sort of weird free speech thing because they thought she would pollute our precious.
She might have, but
Australian
I'm not sure
minds.
I agree with that decision. But
and
still. But but Candace Owens is a perfect example.
It's a perfect example.
Like did you talk to her or didn't have?
I did talk to her,
Okay.
and I think it was really useful because of course I'm not going to convince her that the First Lady of France is not a trans woman.
Right.
She believes this wholeheartedly. She's done way more research than I could. There's no point in trying to even argue with her about it because she knows a lot more about Brigitte Macron, the school that she went to, and
that's
everything.
The month of research that I don't want to do.
Yeah, you don't have to do that month of research. But
Right.
if you have a theory of the case, a theory of mind that again is more like, here is the arc of Jordan Peterson's career, here is the arc of Candace Owens' career, and I'm not saying that Jordan is equivalent to Candace. I still think he's a really interesting mind, but if you can sort of step back and have a conversation about the conversation in a meta way, then I think I was able to just point out and kind of lead the viewer to understand that what she is doing and has always done is blunder into quite complicated areas where she's underinformed and create large arm-waving theories about them and think that she's doing great exposure, like explosive journalism where she's revealing all of the, but she's carrying behind her, she's trailing a litany of failed conspiracy theories already.
But like that's some research that you have to do. You have to know what she's trailing.
You have to spend a day. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think I would have Candace on my podcast.
I don't think you should.
I've never
as well.
been tempted to invite her. And if I did, I would. I mean, because I know what I think about her. I've had some dealings with her when I was still on Twitter. We went back and forth both publicly and privately, briefly during COVID. So I know what I think about her whole project and how she approaches these issues. I mean, I think she's I don't know what her actual motivation is, but I think effectively she's doing a fair amount of harm, and she's just a provocateur and kind of fundamentally dishonest. So the only reason for me to talk to her, if there was a reason, would be to show that in a way that would really be crystal clear and indelible to any audience who stumbled upon that document in the future. I don't know, so I haven't heard your conversation with her, but I worry that without really like trying to tap her out again and again and again and again and being relentless, you can stumble into some kind of journalistic uncanny valley that's perhaps not where Rogan is, where it's just high fives throughout the conversation, but something close, which is like where the net result is this created a vibe of like we can sort of agree to disagree about these points, whereas actually you, Candace, are an agent of a truly dangerous spread of toxic misinformation. Right? Like you're doing, she's someone who's doing active harm to our society based on the size of her audience and the topics she's touching. There's no question. She's just spreading anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, and it's awful.
I'm trying to think of. I think what happened, and we don't have to dwell on this particular case study, but I think what happened was that I realized in like a couple of hours of research that the first formative thing that happened to her in her career was during Gamergate, when she was on the left, and she completely misjudged the community that she was trying to speak on behalf of, which was actually the far left kind of like. Remember Gamergate?
I know about it. I was not. I wasn't paying attention to it in real time. But
anyway, the takeaway story for her from that was that she wanted to become a sort of a spokesperson and a defiant figure in a community that she was completely alien to, which was this women in gaming community.
Right.
And I realized that if I could draw a bow between that and what she's currently doing, I could show that she has a pattern of claiming loudly to have uncovered really important things that turn out to be bullshit. And that way I don't have to get into the back and forth about whether or not Brigitte Macron is a trans woman.
But how do you demonstrate that the stuff she's touching is
by
bullshit?
Getting her to admit the stuff about in the past, because she feels like she was wronged back then. So she's perfectly willing to admit that she she didn't understand that community, and she was in over her head. So then at the end of the conversation, I can say, is it possible this is just something that you do a lot?
Right.
Like start to talk about communities that you don't know about, and that you.
Right. I think.
But again, everyone does things differently. Like that doesn't have to be the job of the show.
But you might have more faith in the sort of the coup de grace like nature of that little turn at the end than I do. I honestly think a lot of these topics are confusing enough that the possibility of making a mess and not cleaning it up is much higher for some. I mean, again, like the Gaza thing is an enormous example. It's very easy to. I mean, it's like the result that Douglas had going on Rogan's podcast with Dave Smith. I mean, like that was not the net result for Rogan's audience was. It was totally, I mean, as far as I can tell, totally unpersuasive. Like it just redounded to the advantage of Dave Smith, who's not, an honest interlocutor, as far as I can tell. As much as he might be sincerely believe what he claims to believe, he's not. It's just he's not playing by, journalistic rules that I respect.
I mean, it was also unfair that there was 2 against 1.
But that shouldn't matter. Like it doesn't. It shouldn't matter. It's not the. I mean, Douglas. Douglas and I spoke about this. I thought Douglas made one kind of crucial mistake that was just guaranteed to go over like a lead balloon for that audience. I mean, he was essentially arguing from authority, journalistic authorities, like the whole "Have you been to the region?" Move. Is, I think, at bottom specious. I mean, again, it's totally understandable from a journalistic point of view. It's like it's part of the journalistic code. Like if you're going to talk about a region and report on that region, you should have gone to the region, right? Okay. But the truth is, you can actually determine the ethics of a war without having been to Ukraine.
Sometimes going can mislead you because there's the Thomas Friedman effect of you go to Cairo for one day and you talk to a cab driver and you come back telling everybody in the New York Times what Egyptians think.
Exactly. Yeah.
But no, I mean, I was texting with Douglas after that as well, and I think Monday morning quarterbacking, right? But I think there was also a little bit in there that he hadn't quite figured out what his response should have been, which is that if you're going in saying that we need to sort of trust elite journalists about these things, then that undercuts your other case that we should be suspicious of elites. He seemed to be making 2 opposite points. Right? Like, if we're the guys who are saying that elites have discredited themselves and then we're saying that you can't shoot the shit with Darryl Cooper, because he's not an elite. I mean, Douglas and I tried to dissect this when we did a postmortem on it. I mean, it's a slightly confusing point. I mean, it's not nearly as confusing as it seems to be, given the effects of this controversy out in the world. But we should understand that expertise is a thing, right? The difference between knowing a lot about something and knowing nothing is when that something matters, rather crucial. And yet, experts can be wrong, and the antidote to them being wrong or them being frauds, or them being fake experts, is more expertise and more criticism and more nuance and more debate. It's not just everybody's uncle having a strong opinion, right? So you can't get out of the circle of expertise. Well, I mean, and the other word for that is elitism, right? I mean, it's like you want to be an elitist when it comes time to get surgery, for your kid. You want the best surgeon. You don't want the surgeon who learned surgery from ChatGPT or on Joe Rogan's podcast, right? So, we all should be snobs with respect to the importance of expertise when it matters, right. But there's this anti-expertise. I mean, you can understand the
experts have screwed up in all kinds of ways,
and not even the stupid version of the suspicion or the skepticism, but the smart version of the skepticism, which is that so the most brilliant people in the room have given us the Iraq War and Enron and Vietnam and like a whole bunch of stuff, and now we're supposed to trust them because of their expertise about why So there are certain areas. So again, this is
it's understandable that this is confusing, but it shouldn't be. It's true that certain institutions get captured by by ideologies or certain fads, right? So it's like the genuine expertise gets eroded by kind of prior commitments, political commitments, right? So it's like a little like what wokeism did to journalism, right? It's not that there's no difference between the New York Times and Breitbart, but wokeism, fairly vitiated the journalistic integrity of the New York Times for a time, or at least on certain topics. But that doesn't mean the distinction between real journalism and fake journalism isn't as real as we ever thought it was.
Right.
It is real. And so it is with science and pseudoscience. The antidote to all of the tangle of bad incentives in the pharmaceutical industry and medical science is not a conspiracist like RFK Jr. running the whole works, right? It's understandable that people are at the end of their patience on certain things, but still, we need more science. We need to find bad incentives and correct for them. I mean, this shouldn't be controversial.
There's another heuristic here, which I mentioned to Douglas after this, which I think is operative, which is the old Carl Sagan line that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, right? And if so, it's perfectly legitimate for you to be a scholarly historian who disputes the mainstream narrative about World War II. But you better bring your bloody evidence. Like the likelihood that you're going to get a really great and insightful and interesting and truthful conversation out of that person is unlikely unless they're bringing an enormous bag of evidence with them. So the number of times that a person like Rogan chooses to, platform, for want of a better word, this person versus that person ought to be roughly proportionate to the how extraordinary their evidence is. If you're going to say that basically every World War II scholar of the past half century has been mistaken, then that's a big, gigantic claim that you need more evidence for than simply saying, well, I'm a historian and I've looked at this stuff.
Yeah, or I'm not a historian.
Or I'm not a historian and I've looked at this stuff. Yeah. This is Uncomfortable Conversations with Josh Szeps. I am Josh Szeps. That is the one and only Sam Harris. We're traveling around the world on a Szeps live world tour where every single city we're in, I haul my jet-lagged ass across a table from somebody, and Sam has been kind enough to stream it on his Substack as well. Thanks for that. The end of faith, you attacked Islam.
All faith,
but it landed as Islam.
But it was a post 9/11 effort.
That's right. Yeah. In 2020, a lot of people loved the fact that in June you were brave enough to publish that piece about race relations during the racial summer called "Can We Pull Back from the Brink?" Same after October 7th. You published a piece called The Bright Line Between Good and Evil in November. So you don't shy away from controversy. To my knowledge, you never touched the trans issue.
I have, but not I don't think I have had a dedicated podcast. But I've said in many places, both on my podcast and other people's podcasts, I've said what I think about it, but I haven't done a
Did it ever occur to you to do a monologue about that and try to tease out the nuance?
To the contrary, it occurred to me to avoid the topic. I mean, it was the one topic that it just seemed, for the longest time, just not worth it because it's not
the one topic. In June of 2020, race was that topic.
Well, that just seemed. I mean, so it affected so many more people, and it was so our entire society was getting crushed by that, by what I viewed as a kind of moral illusion, really, in the end. I mean, it's not that racism is. I mean, people can go back and listen to "Can We Pull Back from the Brink" if they want to know what I think. But it's not that racism isn't a problem, but it's just there was a kind of moral panic on this topic. Now, the trans thing eventually became captivating enough for me that I felt like I did need to talk about it in certain contexts, but I just never did a dedicated show on it. I don't think. I mean, maybe.
No, I don't think so. I mean, to the extent that Trump's Kamala is for they, them, Trump is for you ads contributed to his re-election, it was an issue that affected all of us.
No, I mean, during the campaign, I talked about it a lot in terms of like.
You talked about it in terms of what a blind spot it was for Kamala to not, overtly repudiate her love of giving free sex change operations to incarcerated illegal immigrants.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's a lot of dots to connect there. Yeah.
That's like the insanely woke cartoon version of it, right? There is a much more banal and parochial version which had been bubbling along for really 5 years, which was that if you believe that trans women aren't women, or that they're a particular kind of woman who should be kept distinct from the class of people who are biologically female, you're a bigot and you're on the wrong side of history.
Yeah.
And that persisted for a long time.
No, I was aware of feeling like it was not worth the pain it was obviously causing to certain people. I mean, I saw what was happening to J.K. Rowling, and I spoke to, so I did touch it in that I had Megan Phelps Roper on the podcast to launch the witch trials of J.K. Rowling.
Right.
And I did a full whatever, and I just fully threw in my lot with the Free Press and J.K. Rowling on that. I mean, J.K. Rowling, I'm sure has fixated on this topic more than was good for her or for anybody. I mean, again, I'm not on social media, so I haven't paid attention. But I mean, I just think it's obvious. It should be obvious what is true about this social issue, and it shouldn't be as polarizing as it has been. And the fact that it has become this kind of all-encompassing, political problem for Democrats is just a spectacular own goal that they should never have scored, and they've scored it on themselves repeatedly. I mean, it's why we have Trump. I mean, honestly, it's immigration and the trans issue is why we have Trump for a second term.
You don't regret not going into it in greater detail? Like if it's your job to make sense of things, if it's your job in a crazy world. I think I've said it. I just haven't spent. I mean, we can talk about it now, but I've said. I mean, I've said everything now,
I think about it.
In 2025, it's kind of easy. In 2023, there were very few people. I mean, people were still losing their jobs all over the place, and it was almost impossible to say, hang on.
Right.
There is a tiny minority of people who, from the age of 2, know that they are in the wrong body, and we need to be compassionate to them. And there are all kinds of dysfunctions if we don't honor their transition. And at the same time, there are biological differences between the sexes. Gender dysphoria may or may not be a social contagion among particularly vulnerable, mid-teen girls in particular.
Girls,
and we're, using the lessons of the gay rights movement in the wrong way, and we're stigmatizing what we're calling sort of detransition. I mean, what do they call it? Where you, like a religious person, will try to pray the gay away or something like that. We're using the language of those sins in a context in which they're not applicable in order to penalize and demonize psychiatrists. I mean, I had a psychiatrist on my ABC show on the public broadcaster in Australia who was the head of the Psychiatric Association in Australia, who was raising some concerns about pediatric transgender medicine. And I invited him on after about a week of sort of arguing with my producers about whether we were even going to touch the topic. This is when the Tavistock clinic in the UK closed.
Yeah.
And the first thing he said was like, I feel like the girl at a dance who's been standing on the sidelines waiting for somebody at the public broadcaster to ask me to dance. And I've been waiting a long time. So thank you for bothering to even hear what I have to say. Because if he sees a 15-year-old girl on the spectrum with gender dysphoria, it's hugely taboo for him to inquire about whether or not she has other things going on, like depression or anxiety or whatever. If she insists that she's a boy, that's it. She's supposed to go on the protocol.
Yeah.
So
I was not focused on this because I just wasn't focused on it. I mean, I wasn't early to focus on it. Once wokeness became this the 8,000-pound gorilla that was destroying our politics. Every time I would hit it, I would tend to also hit this trans issue, but not in depth. I mean, it was not like, I mean, I agree with everything you just said in terms of the spectrum of plausibility. I mean, this is, on the one hand, gender dysphoria is a real thing for a tiny minority of people, and we should have some compassionate response to that, and medical remedies may in fact be part of that for a minority of people. But then there's this, especially among teen girls on the other side of the spectrum, there's this obvious problem of social contagion, and we got to talk about that honestly. That I've spoken about that in various contexts, but my concern about what trans activism did to our politics is something that I've spoken about a fair amount. Again, but probably more on other people's podcasts than my own, but still on mine. I mean, it's always kind of race and trans as this sort of the two-headed monster that just we had to figure out how to slay politically, and we couldn't figure it out left of center. It's like I'm convinced that with the tiniest number of exceptions, every mention of race in a political context in America is counterproductive now. It's just there's no reason to talk about it. I mean, it's not we know what the goal is politically. Like, we know what kind of society we want to live in. We want to live in a society where skin color differences are completely irrelevant politically. Right, we've agreed about that.
Well, what do you mean, we white man? Like, a lot of people don't. A lot of activists don't.
Exactly, and they are wrong, right? And we shouldn't listen to them, and they should actually be actively ignored in democratic politics. These people have nothing to contribute that's useful to our politics. So they shouldn't be invited to like. This is not the time for identity politics. Is behind us. Right. And otherwise, we're gonna have a fascist country. I mean, it's a disaster. The trans piece was even more damaging than the race piece, in my view. It's like the race is it's a close second, but I mean the amount of political mayhem that trans activists created for us. Again, the insanity of not figuring out that the optics of the southern border would be a disaster. I still don't understand that. I have no idea what Democrats were thinking for years there. So immigration can't be ignored as a variable. I mean, so Trump's victory was overdetermined in that sense. But the fact that Harris couldn't say something sane about the trans issue, about her prior commitments on the trans issue, that was sane and compassionate, and just as you just laid it out, the spectrum of possibility, that falls into this rubric of gender dysphoria. It would have been so easy. She could have memorized it. It could have been 200 words, and the fact that it would have alienated a class of democratic activists that people were worried about. That is the problem.
Yeah.
That is the cancer in the Democratic Party. It is absolutely a cancer. Like, it cannot be made healthy, right?
It's also about pledging fealty to bullshit. And what the race reckoning had going for it on the activist side was that everybody basically wants to not be a white supremacist. So, it seems on its face reasonable to have race riots, maybe. I don't know, like America, slavery, all this stuff. Like, you can sort of go along with these people mean well, even if they might be going too far. Whereas the strange thing about the trans thing was it was really a loyalty test which required people to say things that were obviously not true, or that they obviously didn't think were true, like there is no difference between a trans woman and a woman. Right? I mean, that's just obviously not true. Like, trans women deserve our respect, and I have trans friends, and the worst thing that's happened to them has been the overreach of the trans activists because it's given them this backlash now. They just want to live and let live. But it almost feels like it's almost a Trumpy like test. You know how he forces people to say bullshit? It's a loyalty test, yeah. And that was what was
lie for me, yeah.
So outrageous about it. It was like we all have to play along with this idea that 3 seconds ago, women got equal rights and got the vote and were able to have their own safe spaces and everything and aren't going to be shouted upon by men. And then 3 seconds later, men get to declare that they're women as well. And it's bigotry if women try to assert themselves as that. Like that was, to me, what was crazy about it. People get like, why do you keep talking about trans or something, which I don't. But having it on the table would have been helpful. Having it on the table from people like you between 2020 and 2023 would have been useful.
Yeah, it always, I mean, until it didn't, it seemed like such a fringe issue that it affected such a tiny percentage of the population.
Yeah.
Or should have affected such a tiny percentage of the population.
And now here we all are.
That when it destroyed our politics, I was not first to notice that it was going to destroy our politics.
Right. That Charles Murray interview that ended up causing you so many headaches and that I think precipitated your departure from Twitter eventually, didn't it? From the fallout from that?
No, it was that should have precipitated my departure from Twitter because that was when Twitter, where it should have been absolutely obvious to me that it was not improving my life.
Were you on vacation or something?
Yeah. No, it definitely ruined a vacation.
Ruined your whole vacation by trying to argue with people on Twitter and make them.
But I still think I was on for some years after that. I forget what year that was. That was like 2017. No, it was the Hunter Biden's laptop controversy that was the proximate cause.
Anyway, Charles Murray, he's deplatformed or he's hounded off and violently excluded from university.
Middlebury College. He was. The hecklers stopped the conversation, but then when they were being ushered out of the hall to get to safety, they were physically attacked, and his host got like a neck injury, and then they were like smashing the car with concrete blocks as they were driving away. It was like it was a violent assault on a speaker
because they regard him as being racist for having written the bell
book
curve.
25 years ago. Right. Which, when you look at the most controversial paragraph in that book, it's not even very controversial. That's the other thing that convinced me he was worth talking to. One is I was also sidebarred by some very famous academics who said, "Listen, he's the canary in the coal mine. This guy has been unfairly maligned." But they were doing this privately. They're not going to say that they were not going to say this publicly, and I realized he was unfairly maligned because I had believed everything I'd heard about the bell curve. I thought it was racist pornography.
Black people have lower IQs and are to blame for their lot in America. That's the caricature.
Yeah, but it also sounded like it was somehow. The motivation to discuss any of this was explicitly racist. Right? Like only a white supremacist could want to produce such a book, right? And but I'm not.
We don't need to rehash that episode.
I was
not
interested in the topic.
In your reflections, because obviously what you were trying to do, presumably, correct me if I'm wrong, was to say it should be possible to have a conversation like this without having a brick thrown at your head when you get invited to a university, and therefore I'm going to stand up
and certainly have a conversation about your next book. Or your book that the 10th book you've written since you wrote that offending book.
Right. But it got you in a lot of hot water. Would you do anything differently now?
I don't know that conversation, in hindsight, was actually useful. I think what I did effectively was use a lot of my social capital to give Charles Murray some cover. I mean, to defend him. And I had no relationship with him. I still have no relationship with him. I don't know him personally. So I think it's the only time I've spoken to him. I think I ever. Maybe I had a conversation with him before the podcast just to set it up, but. So there was no personal association motivating this. It just seemed starkly. What happened to him seemed starkly unethical, and I felt like I should use some of my imperviousness to controversy, or my imagined imperviousness to controversy, to give him to give him some cover, right? Because it was just obvious to me that what was being encouraged in the hostility to free expression that was being encouraged on left of center at this point was so totally dysfunctional that this was a good place to resist it. I mean, this would kind of sharpen up but I don't know. In hindsight, I don't know if it was worth it. I mean, I think, for instance, there are people. I don't know what percentage of my audience, but there are people who, at that moment, got convinced somehow. I mean, it was really largely because of what Ezra Klein did in the aftermath that this became a problem. But because Ezra, spent a lot of time. I think he wrote 2 or 3 articles himself, in addition to the kind of spurious article he published from in Vox with other authors. I think it was defamatory to a degree that has lasting damage in my world that probably wasn't worth it. I mean, it probably was the wrong battle to fight in the end. I mean, I can't say I regret it. I don't think about life in those terms. But, if you said you kind of flip a switch and not have had that happen, I think it would be worth flipping that switch. I mean, it's just a net negative. I mean, honestly, I expect, if I live 50 more years, which is, barring some AI breakthrough, is not going to happen. But, however long I live, I think it's totally possible that part of my obituary that my daughters will have to read will contain something about, this controversy. And it's just it's a complete confection, a dishonest confection of woke stupidity, and ironically, woke stupidity that the agent of this misapprehension no longer endorses. Rather, like Ezra Klein has moved on, without a backward glance, has not admitted that he's moved on. There was no greater enforcer of woke shibboleths at that moment in time than him. That in terms of my encounter with the problem. There was Glenn Greenwald had another piece of it, and there's some defenders of Islamism who had another piece of it. But Ezra was just on the highest of high horses, reading me the Riot Act on the podcast we did. Urging upon me, counting the number of white guests and black guests, and male guests I had in my podcast up until that moment, and finding the ratios unacceptable, and recommending that and suggesting that I was kind of intellectually irresponsible for not having fully absorbed the wisdom of Ibram X. Kendi at that point. That's where Ezra was, right? So, and he's obviously not there anymore, right? He's the abundance guy, or he's found a different orbit in democratic politics, and understandably so. But what he was doing there was totally dishonest and unethical, and I think it was a net negative. There's no question it was a net negative. I still get people, saying, attacking my meditation app for like why would I want to learn to meditate from a racist who platformed Charles Murray and is into eugenics, and it's
take your blood pressure down a little.
Yeah. It's impossible to unring that bell. And that's why nobody wants to touch these topics.
I'm just wondering if that misapprehension of your imperviousness to controversy, as you put it, changed your likelihood to touch other topics thereafter, like trans.
Well, it hasn't. Well, look at what I just said on this podcast. I just called trans activism a cancer that is completely irredeemable and is ruining democratic politics, right? I'm not shy about what I say.
But that won't cause the Ezra Klein backlash in 2025.
Well, yeah, but there's no. The truth is, if I've learned anything, I've learned to pick my battles more. And the huge piece. The piece beyond which there's really no. There's almost nothing more to say. Is stepping off social media, right? Like the fact that I'm not on X is everything. Right, like I'm occasionally trending on X apparently, because Elon attacks me, or it's usually in recent years that was the reason. But the truth is, I don't even bother to find out why. It's like who cares, right?
Right.
But if I were there, I would feel like okay.
You'd respond,
I got to respond.
And someone would misunderstand the response.
Now I got to have this guy on my podcast to debate this thing,
right.
and so it completely distorted my sense of. That's why. So like, the only reason why I responded to Ezra was because I was seeing moment by moment the consequences of, and presumably that those consequences still play out. I just don't see them anymore. I've averted my eyes, and that could be another form of delusion, right? But the truth is,
maybe the imperviousness to controversy is a self-fulfilling prophecy, where as long as you don't, you don't hear the tree fall in the wood, it didn't happen.
I think, obviously that's not true for some people's careers. If you have a boss, if you're at an institution that can fire you, and you destroy your reputation on, you're Justine Sacco, and you get on a plane to Africa and you land, and there's somebody waiting at the airport to tell you you've been fired, right? That's.
But that seems like it seems like a lifetime ago, right? The beginning of cancel culture, the fact that you and I both know that person's name, Patient Zero, Typhoid Mary of, cancel culture is incredible, and just shows how much the wave has crested. Let's do some rapid fire, Sam.
Sure.
You're watching Uncomfortable Conversations. We're doing a big Szeps live world tour. I'm Josh Szeps. This is the inimitable Sam Harris, kind enough to sit down with us while we're here. And so subscribe to Uncomfortable Conversations. You'll get a bunch of new episodes, and you can go and check the backlog. Sam's been kind enough to do the show a couple of times. If you can take a blue pill and you can have a happy life, would you?
Well, what's the alternative? Like pure misery in reality?
I guess you already have a pretty happy life. If you could be optimally happy all the time, and you're not quite sure why, but let's just say that you're going to be 50% happier than whatever the baseline is.
Yeah. But you
delusional? Might be a little bit more delusional. Yeah, exactly. You're not going to notice the bad stuff quite as much.
Well, I'm not tending to act as though that were my goal. I'm spending a lot of time looking at bad stuff, and I know people who spend much less time looking at it, and they're noticeably happier when the bad stuff is ascendant. So I'm not acting that way. So I think I like watching what I do. The answer is
your revealed preferences.
No,
okay.
Yeah.
Do you think we're in a simulation?
No.
Would you care?
I'm not sure what it would change. I guess it would. It has certain implications. Obviously, if we're not in touch with and cannot be in touch with the base layer of reality, then on some level anything is possible. That's why I don't think it's not behaving the way you might expect it to behave.
What's not behaving the way you might expect what to behave?
Reality or simulated reality.
Sorry, meaning that the simulation is likely because reality isn't behaving properly?
There should be no rules, or you wouldn't expect necessarily that there'd be rules. Like everything could change, on Tuesdays, if it's a simulation. That's a possible simulation, right? Like the laws of physics are different on Tuesdays.
Right, but it doesn't have to be.
No.
You could have the rules of the game.
No.
The fact that there are rules.
No,
someone could say it's a simulation because why would a universe have rules? Why would there be laws of physics?
Right. But if you made a simulation so as to be as convergent with what we mean by reality as it could be, right? Like, so you're going to see, then it is real. Then there is no important difference. I mean,
Yeah, well, I mean, if the system is closed, then it's kind of a moot question as well, isn't it? Like, if you're never going to be able to get out of the simulation or know for sure whether it's a simulation or not, then it's kind of a theological question, isn't it? It's
yeah,
like,
and if there's no, again, if it only, if it's not, if there's a distance between the simulation and reality that matters, that's the only thing that's going to make it matter. If there's no distance that matters, then it is just purely semantic.
Yes.
Right? So
well, I mean, it's semantic within the closed box, but it's not semantic if outside of the universe there really is a computer that we're running on.
Yeah. But I mean, it's again, when you think of what could be simulated, there are lots of surprises in store, and then those would matter.
Yes.
Like there's a lot. I mean, if it's a very boring simulation, then it doesn't matter, and I don't care. But if you're saying that this is, it was being run on a supercomputer made by the Mormons of the future, and Mormonism is true, in the simulation, well then, okay, it's going to get very interesting.
Yeah, that's right. But if we could never step outside the simulation to know that, then we just have to behave as if...
just have to wait in Jackson County, Missouri for Jesus to appear.
Okay, at some point it'll happen. Do we need state intervention, government intervention in the way that big tech algorithms and ultimately artificial intelligence are evolving?
I think so. Yeah, I don't see how you solve the this particular coordination problem without governments getting involved. I mean, the market's not going to solve it. It's just.
What about social media companies?
Yeah, I mean, this is always how I frame it. I mean, we've been enrolled in this vast psychological experiment that no one quite consented to, and it's not working out. I mean, I think social media has been a disaster for us, net. I think the fragmentation of our society that we're currently seeing is. I guess it's conceivable without social media, but it just seems like social media is the smoking gun. I mean, the internet generally.
But a lot of people will say, it has like negative externalities, but it also provides a lot of connection for people, and it enables, chess 15-year-old autistic chess geniuses to connect with other 15-year-old autistic chess geniuses on the other side of the world.
Yeah. But I mean, the chess geniuses had it okay before the internet.
And what do you think of jurisdictions, many of which are in Australia and various Australian states, that are banning it for under 16s? Social media.
Well, that's our policy with our daughters. So it's
You're looking at the next candidate for the prime ministership of Australia right here, yeah. Sam Harris. What are psychedelics doing to the brain? Is it a chemical thing, or are they tuning us into something spooky?
Well, I mean, experience is spooky on its own, even if it's just a chemical thing. I mean, that's spooky, and the fact that the self isn't what people think it is spooky, or it sounds spooky when you put it that way, right? So it's like and the extremity of psychological experience that's available is kind of amazingly broad, both positive and negative. And that's spooky, and the fact that you can sort of traverse it with a chemical. You take a pill, and you can suddenly have, barring, the rare case where people are immune to the effects of psychedelics. I mean, there are a few people who no amount of acid or psilocybin does anything to them.
What's their life like normally?
I don't know how that's possible, but
permanent trip.
It's apparently demonstrated. It's I don't think there are any metaphysical conclusions we need to draw based on those experiences that people have, but the experiences themselves are so discordant with ordinary experience for most people that it's profoundly spooky to just know that you're 45 minutes away from that experience at all times, just given the requisite stimulus, and it's a wholesale change in your seeming entanglement with reality. I mean, that's so. I mean, it's just like the experiential claims, the spookiest experiential claims are valid, right? Like you can have the experience of whatever merging with the cosmos.
Yeah.
Right. So
no, I mean, it's just weird because I can see the argument going either way. I can see the materialist saying, obviously, there's nothing truly and by spooky, I'm using this in quotation marks, of course, but I mean, obviously, there's nothing supernatural or metaphysical going on, because all you're talking about is a chemical that is binding to receptors in your brain. And so the fireworks are going off and everything's taking place inside the skull, and that's that. There's nothing more to interrogate. And then I can also see the meditative yogi on the trip saying, like, it's obvious that this is doing something that is immaterial in the sense that we're engaging with and relating to other ideas, creatures, perspectives that are unavailable to us normally, and the top of our head is being opened up and a portal is going to somewhere or something that is immaterial.
Yeah, so I would take it in the opposite direction. I mean, the material world is spooky. Consciousness is spooky. I mean, the fact that consciousness exists is like we don't know how it's entangled with the physical world. The fact that let's just stipulate it emerges in the brain, that's a miracle, right? Like that's, and I'm not sure what insight is going to make that seem like anything less than a miracle. The fact that consciousness, that there's some, again, we even saying this is too much. I mean, we don't know this for a fact, but let's just stipulate that this is so. There's some pattern of unconscious complexity that is sufficient to just bring consciousness into being, and that happens in our heads, and it might happen in computers, and it can be perturbed by different chemical changes and opening doors to contents of a sort that you've never experienced before and never would experience again, but for this this little dollop of chemistry, and we can't imagine how far all of those possibilities extend. Obviously there's landscapes of mind we're never going to experience no matter what we do with our brains, but yet they're potentially there for the requisite kinds of brains. All of that is profoundly spooky. I mean, it almost couldn't be weirder, right? Like there's nothing, there's no magic, add magic to it. It doesn't make it more weird.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I get it. What's the most persuasive argument for God that you've come across? Not necessarily the Christian God, but just the existence of a conscious deity.
I mean, there really isn't one apart from the fact that, so there's an argument for being humble with respect to how little we understand about the nature of reality, right? So like the status of consciousness in the scheme of things, right? Or whether there's, whether the universe is a simulation or whether there's mind at the bottom, and so like all of that, again, that sounds very spooky and like there's maybe some point of contact between those claims and the concept of God. And if we call all that God, well, okay, then recognizing that we're just evolved primates with very limited bandwidth, who just practically yesterday figured out to keep our shit out of our food because it was killing us.
Some of us haven't even figured that out yet.
And now we're training our telescopes on the sky. We should be very slow to conclude that we have the whole shape of this thing, clearly in mind. But none of that offers an argument for the deities you find in Scripture.
No,
right?
sure.
I
just mean
where it
the
all
sort
falls
of
apart.
Yeah. If you can go to the past, you get a time machine. The old time machine question. Anywhere in particular that you want to go? You can get vaccinated and you can come back.
Can I take weapons with me?
You can take weapons. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's tempting to go to meet I guess is meeting specific people in the cards, or
Sure.
you're just going to be on a sidewalk or
Sure.
on a gravel path?
No, because you would know all of the things that we know today, so you'd be able to figure out. You could strategize ways to go and meet people.
Yeah.
But don't go and kill baby Hitler.
No, yeah. Yes, yeah. That's a funny joke, Louis C.K.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to kill Hitler at some point, but I'm not sure which age is the right moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be tempting to. So it's funny, but like several religious figures are some of the first people I would meet. I mean, it'd be tempting to go back to Galilee at the moment and see what was going on there. Yeah. I mean, it's like because it distorted so much of human history that it would be just. It's just
so
pure,
when Sam Harris
pure
goes back
I want to
and
meet
sees
Jesus
bodily rising from the cave
Jesus
3 days after.
is very high on the list just from a Western cultural perspective. Just to see, I would want to meet. I mean, these are unsurprising people, but yeah, I would want to meet Jesus, Socrates, Buddha. I mean, these are sort of the first people on the list.
You're basically turning this into the dinner party question.
Yeah.
But
that's. I mean, it's all those. I don't have. I mean, there's other. I'd like to meet Kafka. I mean, there's people you don't normally think about, but yeah. I mean, they're not. They're famous writers and philosophers. And
I think going and listening to the Sermon on the Mount is a good answer, right? Like just being around the people who thought that Jesus was really wild.
That's the epicenter of something pretty important. And it could be completely, obviously delusional, and ersatz.
Well, something happened. I mean, something was going on,
but
right?
it could be L. Ron Hubbard. It's like
sure.
I'm pretty sure I know what happened there, and it wasn't worth distorting human history over.
Yeah, right. That's true. If you can snap your fingers, and there was no British Empire, that Britain just remained an island, and it didn't colonize anywhere else, do you do it?
Oh, I doubt it. I mean, I should bracket this opinion with some sense of my own ignorance of some of the relevant history, but I think you can make the case that the British Empire did a fair amount of good on balance, right? I mean, it's like, I'm not sure. I mean, do the Indians really wish the British Empire never showed up? I'm not sure.
I don't know, but a lot of countries don't. I mean, I come from one of them. It's.
I mean, so do you snap your fingers when you? So do you think about India?
I know. I'd keep the empire.
You'd keep the empire.
I mean, only because I've only stipulated that the British Empire is not going to exist, but we haven't talked about whether the Spaniards or the Portuguese or anyone else still can. And I don't think anyone can argue with a straight face that Australia and Canada and New Zealand and before you even get to India, would be as flourishing places as they are, were it not, had they been settled by, I don't know, the Papua New Guineans or the Portuguese or the Tongans or, whatever. What was the best thing about your mum that you remember?
Oh, she's still alive.
I mean, as a child.
Yeah. So I remember her just as recently as a few hours ago. Yeah. Well, I mean, we were just best friends. I mean, so I was raised by a single mom. I mean, my dad left when I was 2.5, I mean, I had a relationship with him until he died when I was 17. But, it was long distance, and I definitely had one parent who raised me, and it was my mom, and she's just a fantastic person. And I had stepbrothers, and I have a half brother that she later adopted, but I was an only child until, through, growing up until 21. So,
were you a mummy's boy?
I mean, it depends what the connotations are there. I mean, like, again, we were. It wasn't totally like she was the cool mom who, like, all my friends recognized was just like, this is the mom you can hang out with as a friend, because and
by mummy's boy, I mean the sun shone out of your ass and you were a bit spoiled, and like she could do no wrong for you and you could do no wrong for her. Yeah,
I mean she's I mean a Jewish mother who has kind of an irrational, rosy view of her son's talents, and yeah, I mean, so it's like
it's not a rare phenomenon.
Yeah, yeah, but I just got an experience of unconditional love from that. It's like it was just a very I don't it's not that there's no cost to. I mean, this is like the best version of a single parent outcome. I think but it's still. I think I paid a price not having a dad in the house. I think it's a job for two people. It's not.
What was the
it's not
price?
ideal. I think it just would have been good to have a male role model who I had that same kind of close relationship with, who was obviously a good parent and part of that process. I mean, like not a vacation dad, which I had until I was 17. But yeah, I mean, so it's like someone who modeled that part of parenthood, and I mean, again, it's just I mean, just being a parent now, it does seem like a job for two people.
Definitely.
It's not.
Did you ever get to express that regret to him, or did he ever address it to you, or was that unspoken?
Within the limits of who I was as a 16-year-old, he got the last year of his life he had cancer, so it was not. I don't think I would have communicated it then, but yeah, no, we had a whole process of. Again, we had a real relationship, but it was long distance, and we didn't log a ton of face-to-face time together.
Did you go and see him when he had cancer, when he was dying?
Yeah.
What was that like?
I mean, from an early age. So my best friend died when I was 13. So, from at least from that point, I had a very acute sense of mortality and just kind of the preciousness of our finite time here, and it also just thought about the kind of the existential consequences of that. So I got my interest in philosophy and religion and spirituality and kind of esoterica. I was like, I think briefly, I was into studying the occult when I was 13.
Oh.
I was just like did the Hermetic tradition have anything, any light to shed on this? I concluded the answer to that was no. But
I want to see 13-year-old Sam Harris with his Ouija board.
Yeah. So I mean, like all of that, like
crystals.
what is death? Yeah, that was it's obviously important for everybody, but I just know people who think much less about death than I ever have. Right? I mean, I don't know when I started, but I mean, it certainly started at 13, and so like I think I know people who go a day or many days, weeks, or maybe many weeks without really thinking about death. I definitely don't go a day without thinking about death.
Oh, prior to my having kids, I didn't think about death. I would have gone weeks, if not months, without thinking about death.
Oh yeah, I don't think I've gone a day since 13. Yeah.
Your death?
My death, anybody's
the
death.
gardener's death. The guy at the deli dying.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've really kind of kept that fact in view ever since. So,
in a healthy way or an unhealthy way?
I think on balance, it's been very positive. I mean, I think it's kind of clarifying of priorities, but it's not that it's not entirely positive. I mean, I think there's some kind of I mean, there can be something morbid about it. I don't know. I mean, just like looking back on having thought about it so much in my 20s, right? Like when it's very, I'm very likely not going to die in my 20s.
Right.
And yet, to spend a lot of time in your 20s thinking that you really can't take a long life for granted. I just think it's possible. I mean, I don't think I did this a ton, but I think it's possible to have. I did many things backwards. Like I sort of in my 20s, I spent a lot of time kind of living like a contemplative old man, because like who knows how much time I have.
Right.
Right.
And
so,
now you're getting drunk and riding motorcycles without
exactly,
a helmet.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's not that I wasn't doing other things, but it was, I spent something like 2 years on silent retreat in my 20s. I don't regret that. I mean, it was incredibly useful and formative of who I am now. But I don't know. I think I mean, again, my sense of my own mortality framed that very explicitly.
Yeah, I mean, there can be a good version of the sense of mortality, right? I've bought one of those posters where you color in a different week every week.
Tim Urban's.
Yeah, that's right. Or is it? I can't remember whether did Tim do that or Oliver Berkman. I think
Tim did a 90-year poster. Yeah.
Okay, right.
Yeah,
well,
like
Oliver,
52 squares on each line. I think
I'm crediting Berkman, who you should have on your podcast if you haven't.
Oh yeah, he's been on.
Okay, and he's, I think he's got the 4,000 weeks,
right.
conceit, and so you color in a little week, and I'm sure that's healthy for somebody, entering middle age to start thinking about, but I'm also sure that in your 20s it probably isn't the most optimized thing to be dwelling upon. Not to push you on this, but just because I lost my own dad last week. What you didn't answer the question about whether you went to visit your dad when he was
I
did. You said
yeah.
you did, but and I said, what was that like?
Well, I mean, he was in a very good space. I mean, because it was a very loving space. I mean, I think he was kind of blissed out on morphine the last time I saw him. Yeah. So he was pretty high on, but it was a circumstance of like total denial. Up until that moment, he had never admitted that he was going to die. His wife never admitted that he was going to die. It's like he was terminal for at a certain point. I have a teenager's eye view of this, so I didn't know all the details. Like they were also keeping details from me, medical details, and they were keeping them from themselves in some sense because they were not acting like people who, for whom this was going to be terminal. So there was a lot of denial. But the last time I saw him, I asked him if he was afraid to die, and he said no. Right? And again, he's quite high on morphine or just high on brain cancer. I mean, at that point, the cancer had spread to his brain. But he seemed to be in a very nice space the last time I saw him. But like it was noticeable to me that like I knew this was my last conversation with him, and so like at that moment I was going to drop the pretense that I had indulged along with everyone else, taking my cues very much from him and his wife at that point, that you're going to beat this, or you're going to do the next round of chemo or whatever, then the macrobiotic diet or whatever's going to cure you.
The coffee enema.
So but the last time I saw him, there was no pretense, and it was.
And was there anything for you to clean up emotionally there? Like, was there anything that had to be said?
No, because the truth is, I never. My experience was of having a very loving, unconflicted relationship with him. I mean, it was purely positive, apart from his absence. It was only when I became an adult and a father that I recognized, oh wow, that's really strange that he left a 2.5-year-old son. I mean, I know a lot of mediocre people, and I don't know many people who would do that. Right.
It's different from mediocre, though, isn't it?
I mean, but like it's an outlier behavior, And I didn't recognize that until I sort of mapped it onto my experience as a parent. Like, I mean, there's nothing.
I can't say I didn't think about it when my kids were 2.5. Like,
Right,
it's like, I can understand the freak out. It's just most people don't actually go through with it.
Right.
Okay, I'm going to let you get out of here with a word association game. Okay, I'm going to say a word. You say the first thing that comes into your head. You don't have to speak in one word if you don't want to. Brexit.
Broken.
Ronald Reagan.
Well, I do think about Alzheimer's in that case. That's my first association. I'm sorry, but
you're not going to make a lot of friends in the traditional small C Republican Party. Public schools.
Also broken.
See how many times you can say the word broken over the course of this game. Peter Singer.
Well, this is.
It doesn't have to be one word.
This is boring, but I just think of it. I think of ethics. Yeah, I mean, I certainly admire his ethics.
Circumcision.
I can't say I regret it. But I don't know the alternative. So.
Peter Thiel.
Well, I know Peter. I don't know him well, but I definitely worry about his contribution to our political moment and the many people in his thrall and in his side of the tech bro universe. Yeah, so worried.
The alternative for Deutschland.
Also worried.
Companies that make staff write he, him, or they, them gender pronouns in their email signatures.
I just found out that there are people in my company that are doing this. I didn't even know this was happening. Yeah, so this is not something that the company, in this case, makes anyone do. People just decide to do it.
You're going to make them go work for Ezra Klein.
Yeah, right. I mean, do I tell them to stop doing it? I mean, is that the right thing to do? I don't even know. I literally
there are some companies that require it.
I just heard about this 2 hours ago. I mean, or 2 hours before getting on this podcast. Some people have been doing it without my knowing. So,
how do you feel about
this is over at waking up.
Yeah, right.
Well, I would never tell them to do it, and I'm tempted to tell them not to do it, but I don't. I mean, I don't want to be boorish about it, but I mean, I don't. If it's a personal choice, I mean, I have no problem with it, but it also it can seem like it's a company policy.
Exactly. It looks like it.
Yeah.
I think
which
obviously people should be allowed to do it if they want to, especially if they do identify in an unconventional way and they appear.
Yeah, no, this is all he, him,
or
she, her.
Yeah, if it's like, come on, Barry, everybody knows that you're a he, him. Like nobody's in any doubt, Barry, about your gender identity. Then maybe you can rethink it.
Yeah.
Dancing.
I don't really do it, except occasionally with
do
my
I
daughters.
Do I not want to see Sam Harris dancing?
You don't. Yes, okay. Even wild animals might grow embarrassed. And
someone needs to do an AI video of Sam Harris pulling some moves.
I think I've seen that.
Like,
I think it's out there.
The ethos of move fast and break things.
Unwise, generally unwise.
Marvel movies.
Sometimes good, sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah.
American universities.
They need a proper colonoscopy, just not the one that's being applied. Yeah.
Okay. Neurodivergence.
Probably too influential at this point in our culture. Yeah.
The notion of it, or
no? I mean the divergent are
they're taking over.
Yeah, they're diverging.
they're coming for us.
We're diverging along with them. Yeah.
The idea of resilience.
It's important psychologically. Yeah. I mean, I think it's good to see see oneself in terms of that variable. I mean, I think that recovery time is everything. So
right.
like having bad experiences is guaranteed, and having bad reactions to those experiences is also probably guaranteed. You want that reaction time, the recovery from the reaction time, to be shorter and shorter.
Yeah.
Therein lies wisdom.
Parasocial relationships.
Few and far between. Yeah.
In your personal case?
Yeah.
California.
Still great.
Clickbait.
Few and far between also, yes. Yeah.
George Orwell.
I greatly admire his writing, yeah. He's like, I have the collected Orwell out there outside this room.
What's his best contribution?
You mean the actual piece of writing?
Well, either a piece of writing or an intellectual, something which he brought into the cultural consciousness that didn't exist before.
Well, you can count on one hand the people who made us this alert to the problem of totalitarianism, authoritarianism. I mean, it's just like, there's a few people who we should go back and read now in our current moment. I mean, these are not names that'll be a surprise to you, but like there's a reason why people are grabbing copies of Hannah Arendt and it's we're at that moment again where it seems like we might lose sight of the principles that distinguish liberal democracy from all the bad alternatives. And we even have people, claiming to make a case against liberalism. And so, yeah, I mean, Orwell is a voice in the wilderness who encountered all this about 100 years ago, 80 years ago, and saw it clearly. I mean, again, it's like I think he was a little slower to this than perhaps he should have been, but it was possible to see what was wrong with fascism and Stalinism simultaneously, right? Like you didn't have to tip over into Stalinism in order to be against fascism.
No, and yes, that sounds like an obvious point to make today, but it really wasn't.
And people can't manage it today. I mean, you can't.
Communism and fascism were seen as opposites. And my grandmother was a communist because she didn't want to be a fascist.
Right.
There was no third option on the table in in the 2030s.
No, but it's the same thing. I mean, it's subtler perhaps, but you shouldn't have to be a Trumpist to criticize wokeness, and you shouldn't have to be a woke libtard to criticize Trumpism. Right?
So,
and very few people seem to be able to do both of those things at the same time.
Lastly, what do you reckon the odds are, I mean, as a parent, that we end the 21st century with liberalism intact in a way that we recognize?
Well, I have to think they're better than 50%. I mean, leaving aside some catastrophe like a nuclear war that derails us or unaligned AI. I mean, it's just liberalism is freedom of thought is so much better than the alternatives that, it has to have an advantage. I mean, it's, again, this could be more wish casting than forecasting, but it's just,
What if the majority just wants their thought to be that?
Right.
The dominant thought. It's not necessarily about appealing to have all these stupid other people expressing all of their dumb ideas.
Yeah, but I mean, in the long run, it's the only way we can correct errors, right? If you're going to suppress thought and conversation on important topics, you're guaranteed to bump into hard objects. So I think we have that advantage that, it's the only way to do real science. It's the only way to figure out what's actually going on, and I mean, again, it's on the left and the right. We're discovering the failure mode of both of them. I mean, you can go into the ditch on either side of the road here, and we're showing the temptation to do both by turns. But I just think. It'd be very surprising to me if the best ideas don't ultimately win. Again, barring asteroid impact or
rogue AI, barring Well, so as long as none of the things that could prevent it from happening don't happen, then it'll happen. So
There's-
it's actually 100% certain to happen as long as the things that might make it
yes.
not happen
Well,
don't happen.
But but it's not as tautological as all that. I do think there is a Darwinian contest of ideas on some level, and if we just let it play out, I mean, if we don't
fuck it up,
nuke
people.
ourselves, there has to be a selective advantage for in whatever looseness to fit some kind of reality testing.
Look, America is the evidence of that selective advantage, as far as I'm concerned. I mean,
Right.
the United States is the sort of the proof case of the success of liberalism in many respects.
Yeah.
Uncomfortable Conversations is my show. Making Sense is Sam's indispensable podcast, the Waking Up app. People also need to get. And the Szeps live tour will continue from London on Monday
Nice.
with Jimmy Carr and a whole bunch of other people whose names escape me at the moment. Sam, a delight. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.